Good morning, everyone. Hello and welcome to this week's Breakfast with Boom. I'm your host, Mr. Boomstick, and wow, this has been a week of news across the board. In fact, some might even suggest that it's information overload. Well, fret not, ladies and gentlemen. My outstanding guest and I will be breaking down the biggest news and entertaining you for the next 2 full hours. So let me get into the famous Boomstick introductions. First up, we have a community member that exemplifies what it means to be a fantastic human being on and off social media. He is a sniper elite. He's a huge Xbox fan, and he does not like scary games, oh, by the way. But he does love story-driven multiplayer titles like The Division 2, and someone you need to follow on Twitter. Please welcome Zemi Games.
Thank you so much, Boom. Super happy to be here. As always, absolutely amazing topics you set up for us today. Can't wait to jump into them. So thank you so much, Boom.
Oh, man, it's great to have you here. And next up, we have one of the hardest working community members on YouTube. He is the leader of the Sesh Empire, game share professional, a die-hard gamer who takes the time to appreciate the finer details in an open world game, and someone not afraid to tell it like it is. Please welcome back after his very long sabbatical, my very good friend, So Shady.
Boom, thank you so much for that intro. You have no idea how much I missed them. You are correct. It has been a long time for Shady, man. A little bit of the good, a little bit of the bad. Unfortunately, a little bit of the ugly had to come my way, but that's all been dealt with. I'm back, baby, and just in time for metric ton of stuff to talk about. Let's get into it.
Well, thank you much for, again, it's great to have you back, dude. Love that you're here. And let's move on to the next guest. You know him as the nicest and nastiest gamer on social media, master at doing impressions, part-time stand-up comic, full-time die-hard gamer, and on social media, he's friends to all, unless, of course, you are a D-bag. One of the best Titanfall pilots I personally know. Please welcome Noof Nukem.
Boom, boom, kaboom. Wow, what an intro, Boom. Thanks. It is fantastic to be here. A great panel, like Shady said. There is a ton of content, so I won't keep this intro any longer. Let's get right into the show. Let's go.
Well, listen, dude, it's great. It's always great to have you on the show. I really, truly appreciate working with you. And, of course, we definitely got to figure out a time to get me back on your nighttime podcast, which is fantastic. Cannot wait to be a guest there again, and we'll be talking about that privately very soon. Next and last, but certainly not least, a corporate private equity lawyer. But trust me, he's a good dude. He escaped from Brexit Island like Snake Plissken. He's a proud owner of the very popular Nintendo Switch and loving Fire Emblem, The Three Houses. He's very stoked about The Matrix 4 being confirmed. Please welcome back to the show, Luke Steele.
Oh, thanks, Boom. Fire Emblem's kind of consumed my life, like for the last 2 weeks. Like it's not for everyone, but it's when you get into it, it kind of takes up all of your time. Just a crazy week for news, crazy couple of weeks for news, actually. Some great topics. I'm looking forward to getting into it.
Well, listen, again, it's great to have you here. I do greatly appreciate you taking the time on your day off. And again, if he was telling us that in order to do today's show, he had to work super late last night. So I do really appreciate you doing that, and of course being here, because I enjoy having you on the show. Now, listen, folks. What were you going to say, brother?
Oh, it's happy to be here.
Oh, well, it is indeed a pleasure to work with you once again. Now, I'm going to say this. It is very rare in podcasting, unless you do a news program on a daily basis, like some of my favorite shows that I watch, that you're going to get groundbreaking news. And this is industry shaking. And obviously, you know, I have to wrench it all the way back to Tuesday when we all got up. Depending on where you were in the world, news broke that Spider-Man had been officially pulled from the MCU. And of course, this was devastating news for many fans across the board. And obviously Spider-Man's involvement in the MCU has been nothing short of historical. In fact, the deal itself that was signed in 2015 is still considered historical. And that was really put together by Amy Pascal, who was in charge at Sony, and of course Kevin Feige, who is the head of Marvel. And that deal was cemented in stone until Tuesday, where there were a lot of conflicting reports that the two sides could not figure it out. Well, yesterday, just to kind of bring this into context, it was still ongoing as who was wrong, who was right. Was Disney being greedy? Was Sony being cheap? It turns out that it just was a stalemate. And I have unbelievably exciting news. And wow, does 24 hours make a difference? This morning, it is being reported by two outlets familiar with the ongoing talks between Sony Pictures, Marvel Studios, and Disney. And this original report comes from CosmicBook.com that the sharing arrangement deal has in fact been made. And here is where it started. Last night, Tom Holland, if you don't know, here's a little bit of tidbit of information. Tom Holland, on his social media, on Instagram, stopped following Sony Pictures. And that was a big deal. Now, a lot of people were saying that he does not handle his own social media. Some people say that he does. His father got involved. Tom Holland's father did a tweet. We saw some really nasty messages from Stan Lee's daughter, which a lot. If you don't know the relationship, she apparently has been estranged from Stan Lee for many, many years, and she had some really nasty things to say about Marvel and Disney. And it turns out that last night, Tom Holland posted a picture on Instagram with him holding an Iron Man figure and Robert Downey Jr. holding a Spider-Man figure with the caption, "We did it, Mr. Stark," meaning that it was that something was going to happen, right? Well, according to the new deal that was again reported upon by CosmicBook.com. And I also have to give credit to Heavy Spoilers on YouTube, who I just found them today, and I just subbed their channel. There's 75,000 subs, and actually this was brought to my attention, and I have to give him a real big shout out, is to King David from the Iron Lords podcast, who hit me up this morning, and of course I went right to my writing skills and transcribed the entire video, and I'm going to break it down for everybody. According to the new deal, Tom Holland is getting a 6-picture deal with an option for a 7th film. He's going to be tasked to do Spider-Man 3. The next trilogy will focus on Peter Parker's college years, where they're going to have him meet up with Firestar and Iceman both of them from the X-Men. The other 2 films will be Avengers films that will see Spider-Man take on a bigger role, and in that Avengers film, they're going to introduce Johnny Storm from the Fantastic Four. Okay? Now here is the breakdown in the numbers for the show. Marvel and Disney will helm and co-finance all Spider-Man related films for 30% of all profits. Sony will distribute the films under their brand. Marvel will have exclusive digital rights for the Spider-Man character and films for Disney Plus and other TV networks. Marvel and Disney will then helm and co-finance live-action Spider-Verse films under the same terms just mentioned. Venom will be coming into the MCU, and Sony has now been given full permission from both Marvel and DC on all TV-related Spider-Man and Spider-Verse live-action TV series that are planned. The report is also stating that the new deal must be done before Saturday so they can announce it at D23. Now, if you're not sure what that is the big Disney event that's happening in California starting tomorrow, where they're going to talk about everything Disney. Now, Star Wars is going to be a big part there. All of their princess movies that are becoming live action are going to be there. But obviously, we've been hearing rumors that they're going to really hunker down and give us a full spectrum picture of Phase 5, which Spider-Man is going to be leading the charge right along with Captain Marvel. I've actually seen pictures of people that are there inside of the event. They've been, snapping pictures that, Spider-Man was going to be a big part of this. It's really great that they got this deal done. Also in the deal, if another company purchases Sony Pictures, let's say Apple, because they've been rumored to be, skulking around to pick up Sony Pictures, the Spider-Man rights would then revert back to Marvel and Disney because the rights that Sony currently owns are not transferable. So I want everybody to understand that. So I want to close out this outstanding news. The fans here are the winners. And as much as both companies would have somewhat been okay with Spider-Man going his own way and Marvel doing their own thing, I think they both would have suffered financially in regards to taking in less money. That's just my opinion on it. But here's my question to the fan base, and I have to go. Of course, I want to get the chat to hear. I want to hear what the chat has to say about this, but I want to hear what the panel has to say. Zemi Games, I want to go to you first on this because you have, in fact, been watching all the MCU movies, and we know notoriously you weren't such a big superhero fan. So I want to go to you first on this. How big is this news for you, and what are your personal feelings that the deal is allegedly signed?
Well, I'm definitely happy to hear that. So I have been watching all the Marvel cinematic movies in order. I just got through Infinity War yesterday, but funny enough, I watched Spider-Man: Homecoming, and then right after that night that I watched that, the following morning, I started hearing all this news Spider-Man's not a part of the MCU anymore and all this different stuff. So I'm definitely happy. From the very beginning, I kind of just thought it was both of these big, strong companies just, trying to strong man each other and, just try to stay quiet to work out a deal, act like they're, not interested and whatnot to get a better deal. And that kind of seems like what it might have been. Ultimately, I'm very excited for it because, I don't know if Tom Holland would have continued being the Spider-Man in a new Sony trilogy, or what. And I really, really like his actor and his portrayal of Spider-Man. So I'm super excited to see that, this is happening. And I'm definitely happy for all the fans because I'm just a newcomer into all of this. So yeah, I think it's excellent news.
Yeah, it's very exciting news. As a matter of fact, it's you never know. You never want to say that this was something that was put out there to get people nervous and excited about Spider-Man being in the MCU. I mean, D23 happening tomorrow. This is unprecedented, going from worst to first kind of scenario. On Tuesday, he was out. On Friday morning, he's back in, and there was 3 days of people literally fooling over themselves. I was one of them because I'm a huge Spider-Man fan. I would have been actually devastated. And I don't necessarily. I think both companies would have failed. I think that there if you think about it, and Noof, I want to go to you, the next on you because I know that you enjoy your games, but you also enjoy proper stories in your game, and maybe even proper stories in your films. And it would have been pretty tragic if Peter Parker couldn't mention anything that happened 5 years prior in Spider-Man 3, and Marvel, all of their characters being like, hey, that web guy, where did he go? Oh, he just disappeared. It would have been kind of stupid, to be honest with you. What are your opinions on this supposedly signed deal? Are you excited to hear that this is done?
Well, the news was huge either way, whether they lost the property rights or they get this deal signed together. But there's no question, Sony has not had a fantastic track record with the Spider-Man property over the last few years. They've had some modest success, but it wasn't until the MCU came along and Disney stepped in that this character has now been elevated to a whole new status. He is widely the most recognizable property that Marvel has in their gauntlet. I'm pretty sure at the end of the day, they're still pretty angry that, Sony still has some say in how this character kind of gets put out there. But I'm glad there is a deal done, if it is supposedly done, because it is good for the character moving forward. I think Tom Holland's done a pretty good job of stepping into the shoes of Spider-Man. Spider-Man is certainly, its reputation's come a long ways. Was a lot riding on this, and I think both companies stand to win. I mean, in Disney's case, heck, they can give up a lot more. I mean, my God, they're one of the biggest conglomerates in the world. They're one of the top companies out there. That they're not hurting for a dollar. So if they got to take a couple of losses and share a little bit more in Sony's direction, then so be it. I'd rather share success than be sharing in failure or having any part of that. So I think it's pretty good news. The only reason I think as gamers that we might have been somewhat happy about the alternate scenario is that obviously we all know that Spider-Man became an exclusive title on the PlayStation 4 last year. It was a massive success. And I think, if we know whatever happens in the movie world or whatever happens here with this deal agreement, it could have caused a bad taste in the mouth, so to speak. And you never know. Like if I was Disney and I didn't get what I wanted, I would easily say
I would have pulled it from the PlayStation 5. And that Spider-Man 2, I would have. I agree with you 100%.
Exactly. I would have just said, I'm going to give it to a third-party publisher, just like Activision was for many years, and go that route. And, more gamers would have been happy because we would have had access to another Spider-Man game. And you can't guarantee that another Spider-Man game would necessarily be crap if Insomniac didn't make it. Just because they made probably the best version doesn't mean no one else can make a Spider-Man game or make it good. So, but either which way, I hope a Spider-Man 2 game comes out. I hope this movie deal solidifies, and I want to see more of Spider-Man from the MCU side of things. I think they've done a pretty heck of a good job so far, and I look forward to more films.
Yeah, no, me too. And you know what? Just to reiterate what you were saying about the, yesterday's Xbox Factor podcast, when we all were under the assumption that the deal was not, I mean, it looked bad. It looked really bad yesterday. And obviously cooler heads and, dollars spoke, is basically what happened. I had said on the show that this would be a golden opportunity for Microsoft to get in there and say, hey, listen, we know you're having problems with Sony. Let's lock up a 10-year multi-character deal. You know what I'm saying? And that would have changed. That could have potentially have changed perception as well as how many people were going to be Xbox fans moving into the next generation if Sony would in fact have lost the Spider-Man character. Because folks, you got to understand something here. Disney, Marvel need Spider-Man in the MCU, and Sony needs the MCU. They both need each other. And I think it's a 50-50 split down the middle. I don't think that one needs more than the other. I think that this is one hand washes the other, both hands wash the face, right? And I think that's what the deal is being done. And if in fact it is being done, that's what's happening. But if the deal would not have been done, I mean, do you honestly think that Marvel Entertainment, who holds the rights to everything Spider-Man outside of the film projects, would have said, yeah, Sony, you know what? You sold 13 million copies on the PlayStation 4. It's one of the best-selling PlayStation games this generation. In fact, it was just reported upon that it's the highest-selling superhero game to date in ever, folks, ever. As long as it's we're talking generations, it's the highest selling. If you're Marvel, do you allow Sony, even though they're a separate entity, even though this is the gaming division, do you honestly think that they would not have pulled Spider-Man from Sony? Of course they would have. So it would have made the Insomniac purchase almost ridiculous. Even though Insomniac is a magnificent developer, let's call a spade a spade. They added them to the worldwide studios because of what they did with Spider-Man, on the assumption they were going to make Spider-Man 2, which is probably going to sell boatloads more than the original because the original was so good. So, Shady, I want to get your opinion on this because you're a very opinionated person, and obviously you are into pop culture. How important is this supposed signing to not only the movie industry, but both Disney and Sony when it comes to Spider-Man?
I think it's huge. It seems from what you were talking about there that both companies are getting kind of what they wanted. Disney is getting a bigger chunk of the cash pie, and Sony is able to make live-action Spider-Man TV shows and cartoons, which was formerly also 100% controlled by Marvel and Disney. I'm sure they still own those rights. They're just letting Sony use them, similar to how they're letting EA currently use the Star Wars rights. EA doesn't own anything related to Star Wars. They just right now get to make Star Wars games because they've essentially paid to use those rights for a while. So I think that's a good deal for Sony, of course, because they now get to expand out Spider-Man into the TV realm and, cartoons and stuff with a little bit of their vision, as opposed to just letting Disney Marvel do whatever they want with those. They're successful. I'm sure people enjoy the cartoons and whatever there is with Spider-Man. I just got to put it out there. Like, I enjoy Spider-Man. I don't love Spider-Man. He's not my number one comic fan. I enjoy superheroes, but I'm not a superhero comic book fanatic, right? Like,
Okay.
I think I have a collection of maybe 30 comics from my entire childhood somewhere squirreled away in a box. A lot of them are Ghost Rider. I've got a few Judge Dredd comics. Like, I'm a fan. I'm not a fanatic, if you will, okay? So I just want to put that out there when I'm talking about superheroes because they're big right now. So, I just don't want to hurt any feelings or have anyone think that I'm something that I'm not, or I'm something that I, more than I am. But this is big for the movie side of things. Of course, it's especially huge. I don't like speaking for multi-billion-dollar businesses making more money. It's good business-wise. That's fine. I think this is better for the fans. If this had fallen through, then we're looking at like the fourth reboot of a Spider-Man character in the movie.
It would have been ridiculous.
Movieverse.
Yes.
It would have. Like, I understand, again, it's comics and that kind of thing happens just in the books. Back next year with a new cape, and it's all good. That's kind of the way it goes. It's par for the course. But fans of these characters or of these films, what have you, it's not a good look to have something just hit the restart button every 2 to 3 movies all the time. And then they got to come in and tell the new origin story, which is the same origin story. He's just wearing a hoodie this time. I'm glad we don't have to do that again with Spider-Man, and he does get to stick around with the other heroes. Mm-hmm. That would have been a big bummer too for Spider-Man, is if he was alone on his own. He has an insane rogues gallery. He's got wicked bad guys that he can play around with.
Oh, he has 900 characters in the Spider-Man universe, and that's been confirmed.
That's nuts. But like, outside of that, what are his other big-time, well-known, famous heroes that he gets to play with that aren't, Spider-Gwen, Miles Morales, or anyone else, Spider-Man?
Right.
It's kind of none. So he would have been on his own, and he never would have been able to interact with all the rest of everybody in the Marvelverse, which is huge. All these other characters are massive now. Like, Guardians of the Galaxy was not a household name.
No.
And Disney in the movies made it one. They're massive characters with huge fan bases now because of these films. So to have Spider-Man in the mix, who is undeniably huge, if not the hugest, globally recognized superhero, being able to just, do their thing together. People love crossovers, man. They love them in the comic books. They love them in the movies, so you can have more of that. It's a good move.
I was afraid of being alone, Mr. Stark.
Like, I'll say it's especially good for little Tom there. Like, 6-movie deal. He's got possibly a 7th. I can only imagine the paychecks that are coming along with those. And he seems like a fan of the character himself. He really enjoys playing the character. So I could imagine the guy was a little stressed out. I heard that he'd unfollowed Sony on Instagram or something like that.
Yeah.
Whoa, zinger. But I mean, hey, it got news. And I think that he's probably ecstatic. I'm sure the fans of the characters, Boom, I know you're over the moon over the thing. I'm just happy I don't have to watch another Spider-Man series get rebooted, and I get to see him, mix it up with some of my other favorite heroes. That's a good thing. As far as the games go, it is very obviously likely going to stay a quote-unquote PlayStation exclusive. I don't see why they wouldn't do that. That being said, the industry is obviously moving towards a stream to any device type of an industry here. Sony hasn't officially come out with the megaphone and said, we're doing it too with PlayStation Cloud. They haven't said it, but I mean, it's coming. They're wording, they're dancing around it. I think they need to dance around it because their fan base is fanatical when it comes to the term exclusive.
Yeah.
So it's worrying, I think, for the top brass of Sony to come out and actually say, look, there's a reason we went with Microsoft and the Azure servers for nothing.
Yeah.
It's because we plan on streaming to anyone that wants to. That's
actually, you know, it's funny you should say that because
we
have a story that we're going to be talking about later on. Exactly, direct quote from some big time Sony guys. So
there you go. So like, while the game is going to stay exclusive to the PlayStation console, I'm pretty sure that by the time it comes out, we're going to be around that period where you'll likely be able to sign up to a PlayStation app or service of some variety and start streaming their games to any device, quote unquote, any device, right? And play them that way. So technically, as much as it's exclusive to the console, you'll likely still be able to play it on many other different things, just like Xbox games, just like anything on Stadia. Like, this is the industry's future, not the only way the industry is going to be going, mind you, but a big part of it, I think. So I'm not too concerned about it. If you're not a big Sony fan or a PlayStation console fan, like myself, you're not going to be forced to go and buy a console that you might not want to enjoy Spider-Man or a couple other games. I'm pretty sure. Like I said, Sony hasn't said it specifically. They've just teased it and danced around it. But I'm very confident that it's coming, man. Like there's no on the wall, basically. They just haven't read it out loud yet.
I mean, listen, again, you said it. Their fan base is fanatical at a point where when if you recall, when the deal was publicly made with them teaming up with Microsoft, you could only imagine what some of the right wing nuts, if you will, were saying. It was crazy. The comments were unbelievable. I actually had to mute some people because of it, because it was crazy. Listen, folks, this is a business. It is a business at the end of the day. It's about dollars and cents. Yes, the guys like Phil Spencer do care what the fans say. A guy like Sean Layden, which I really respect, and I really like Sean Layden, he cares what the fans think. He does. But, you know, it's at the end of the day a business. Luke Steele, I have to call to you big time because you do work in the law field. And I want to get your opinion, but I have to thank Robert Olson with the outstanding and extremely generous $20 super chat. He said, I just wanted to say thank you for being a positive channel. No, listen, dude, here's the thing. First of all, you get two big thank yous. One, for actually listening. Because I say this all the time. I take nothing for granted. I'm happy with one person listening, let alone almost 70 people in live now, which is unbelievable to me. And the generosity, thank you so much for the $20 super chat. It is greatly appreciated. But Luke Steele, I want to go to you on this because obviously when you talk about big business and you talk about companies like Disney and Marvel and Sony Pictures, lawyers have to get involved. But from a fan's perspective, how big of a deal do you actually think that this is to get this done right before D23 is tomorrow?
Yeah, I think it's huge. You know, as a fan, I'm really pleased with it. If you know, it's definitely signed. And I think even if it isn't right now, I think, you know, they will come to the table again to try and do it, because it makes too much financial sense for both of them to do it. You know, it's just I think the last two Spider-Man films were how much did they make?
Well, the last one, Far From Home, not only broke $1 billion, but it is the highest grossing, not Spider-Man film, Sony film to date.
Yeah. But I mean, that's no surprise considering Sony don't really have many. Like Spider-Man's their biggest,
Yes,
like,
that's
film
their big get,
franchise
yeah.
by far. They don't have much else. That's why Sony Pictures historically hasn't done very well. But obviously they excel with the Spider-Man stuff. Yeah, so I mean, from my perspective as a fan and as someone who really loves and wants to see Spider-Man in the MCU again, and also wants Disney's specifically Marvel's involvement in the films. I'm really pleased. I actually liked some of the Sony Spider-Man films, so I really liked the Tobey Maguire first two films, and then it all kind of went downhill. So you just can't really trust. Sony aren't reliable enough, I don't think, with that character. If they're kind of left to their own device, whereas I think when you have Marvel there to kind of steer the ship, it seems to come through better. And I mean, I think it's interesting. I don't think I would find it pretty unlikely that the movie deal had anything to do with the Insomniac Sony Marvel gaming deal.
No, it probably didn't. It was probably they're two separate entities, but we also have to look at. Okay, let me just kind of rewind what you're saying about, because what you're saying makes a lot of sense, and I've actually heard people say it in the chat. I've actually heard someone actually wrote that Adam Boyes who used to work for Sony said that the one deal didn't have anything to do with the other. That's true.
That's right.
That is
Neither
true.
did the comics. The comics had nothing to do with Fox doing anything with
Exactly.
Fantastic Four, X-Men,
Right.
Deadpool, and Disney killed the Fantastic Four
did.
as those movies came out. They killed Wolverine right before his movies came out, and they literally killed the unkillable Deadpool, a man who in the comics was melted down into liquid, drank by Cable, and then puked back up and still regenerated. They killed that guy because they didn't control the film rights. The comics have nothing to do with those movies, but Disney will stomp all over its own IP somewhere else because they're not going to support it if it's in the movies and they're not making the money they want. So it was well within the realm of Disney's past actions to do it with the gaming. They could have been like, well, if you're not going to do what we want with the movies, we're going to make it difficult or just outright cancel it. And even if there was a deal for the game, for a trilogy, which there's no proof of, but if there was a deal for it, that could have collapsed as well, just like this deal for the movies potentially collapsed. Just like deals for, like, say, Xbox and Scalebound collapsed. A deal isn't written in blood with the devil for your soul. It's just a thing with businesses. And in these deals, there's always a way out. These people are smart, and there's always something they can do to say, look, this is done because. And if there's a penalty to pay, Disney had all the money in the world to pay it. It's obviously not going to go that route. But even though they weren't connected, it wasn't like they got the Spider-Man franchise in gaming right now because of the movies.
Right.
Owns that license, and they can still, if they wanted to, make it very difficult or pull it. But because things have been smoothed over, it's not going to happen. But being unaffected by the two or being unconnected, I don't think matters at all. Disney can do what they want with what they own.
Yeah. Now, Luca, let's hear what you have to say, Luca. What were you going to say, brother?
Yeah. So that's true. I think the historic things that Disney's done with, as you're saying, like Wolverine and in the comic space, that's a bit of a different situation though, because they weren't deals that were entered into. Disney just had those rights. They were just like, well, this is linked. We want some kind of side vengeance, so we can actually kind of subdue our IP for a bit in the comic space, for example, to affect what's going on elsewhere. I think people overestimate how these type of have licensing agreements work in general, and you have an agreement, and let's say it is for free games, for example. I mean, we know that Marvel Games have said that the future of Spider-Man console games is with Sony. They said that when the game was originally announced.
Yes.
So we assume there's more than one game, at least two, maybe three. But licensing agreements are, they work on, they're primarily based on royalties. And I'm going on, general things that I've seen in license agreements, having worked on them. I'm not going on, I don't know what's in this deal, but, they're not like these weird things that don't have kind of a form to them. So they typically go on royalties. And there's a lot of financial modeling that takes place within them. So these deals are based on expected profits of whatever product's supposed to come out of them. And sure, Disney could turn around and go, actually, we want to out of this deal. I mean, they breached their contract. But there's not just, there's an enormous financial hit to doing that, particularly if it's based on some kind of, future profits of the game. So that's the first, and Disney absolutely could take that hit, even if it was, which I imagine it would be, hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars. They could do that. But the difficulty then is for them that you've not just got that kind of side of things, you've got general shareholder disapproval of that. Disney would be throwing away hundreds and hundreds of millions of profits to take a huge hit over essentially, a side quabble with unrelated entities. That has
right, yeah.
Yeah, essentially through spite, and that has significant impact on actually the most importantly the jobs of the executives that do that. They can, shareholders have significant powers to be able to go, well, we're not happy with that, particularly because in Western countries like the US and like the UK, companies are predicated on running the company for the benefit of shareholders. So it's not just as easy for Disney to say, we're gonna breach the contract because we don't like it, and that's tough. And I think the other thing is that the other thing that makes it harder for Disney if they ever wanted to do that is that these agreements have things in them that deal with dispute resolution and how that happens. And usually what happens is the IP, or the licensed IP in this case, so the right to Spider-Man games, for example, it lies with the licensee. So it lies with Sony. So they have control of it until any of that process is finished, ultimately perhaps with a court. So you're talking like at least 6, maybe up to 24 months of Sony controlling that right until the contract's been sorted out.
When we say controlling, like, I'm pretty sure Marvel in their original deal has massive oversight, similar with EA. As much as EA is the only company that can make Star Wars games, I can guarantee you that EA can't make any Star Wars game they want with any story. Like, I'll bet you Lucasfilm and Disney's right in there. Like, you're allowed to make this type of game or this one or this one. They're just the only ones that are allowed to make and release it. So I can see that with Spider-Man as well. Sony's the only company allowed to make the game right now, but they're not allowed to just do anything they want with the character, write any story they want, include whatever they want.
Yeah, no. So I think to clarify, it is that it's not that Sony could just we'll make an again, like, we'll do what we want while this gets sorted out. It's more that Disney can't take that right away and give it to someone else. So you can't just take that and then go Remedy, go and make a Spider-Man game in the interim. Like, that has to all be sorted out. So
that would be hard and costly, as you said, right?
Yeah, exactly. And even for Disney having pockets, it would be not only very costly, it would look bad from a business sense. Business is mostly based on goodwill, especially when you get this high up to companies that have this much money. And I just think it's just so unlikely. It's not to say it's not within the realms of possibility. I just think the likelihood of it is, from my experience, it would be minimal. And if I was a lawyer acting for Disney, I'd probably want to shoot myself the next day if that's the process they were going with. If they were saying, no, we really want, like, okay, but like, I'm not going to be involved in it because it would be a nightmare.
Yeah. All right. Well, listen, I'm going to say
ironed out. You don't have to worry about that, I guess, right? Like, this whole mess has been kind of cleaned up within its own week, which is nice. That it's not going to be dragged out for just months and months of speculation and stuff. I like that about the whole thing.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, listen, I'm going to say this. First of all, everyone had great points. This was a great way to open up the show. We are 37 minutes into the show, and of course, this is breaking news. This is genre-defining news, so of course, that's why we covered it. And it was great to actually have someone who is in the business of law to give his perspective. Luke, that was amazing. Thank you for breaking that down. I want to segue into the second topic of today's show. Gamescom 2019 it basically has come and went, but it's still making news because at Gamescom, Marvel's Avengers game, a 20-minute gameplay video which was released by Square Enix and of course Crystal Dynamics, who is developing the game. And you got a chance to see the Hulk, Iron Man, Thor, Captain America, and more specifically Black Widow gameplay. Listen, I'm going to say this, folks. If you are looking forward to this game, or you were on the fence, this video should give you a clear indication of how amazing this game is going to be. First of all, that you got to see all of the Avengers fight, but the big fight, the big part of and for me the most exciting part was seeing Black Widow, because obviously she is a human being with no powers, just skills. And they show her fighting Taskmaster, which is, the fight was incredible. And her level platforming aspects seemed very Tomb Raider-esque. Like they took it right out of, one of the last Tomb Raiders released on multiple systems. Obviously, the E3 presentation from June, it didn't do the game any justice. A lot of people walked away very dissatisfied from what they saw. There was very little gameplay. There was more of a cinematic feel to it, just some of the things that we saw in this trailer. You got a chance to see Hulk smash things around, and it gave me like some serious Ultimate Destruction vibes. If you remember that game way back in the days, I think it was on the OG Xbox. Ultimate Destruction with the Hulk was amazing. It was a lot of fun to play. It was basically GTA with the Hulk because it was open world. But Marvel's Avengers is coming to PC, PS4, Xbox One relatively soon. In fact, May 15th of 2020, which we're only 7 months removed. And the game looked very polished. It looked very crisp. There was no clipping, no see-through. It looked like a solid, gameplay trailer put together. So here's my question to the panel. The gameplay trail looked, obviously, like I said, solid, and it sold the H out of me for sure. I mean, I wasn't on the fence because I'm a huge superhero fan. I'm a huge MCU fan, so I was stoked about this game regardless. But I watched this trailer at least 4 glorious times, and I got more impressed every time I saw it. So Shady, I want to go to you first on this, dude. What were your thoughts on what was shown from Gamescom 2019?
Oh, Boom, I'm sorry, man. I did not feel like you felt.
Okay. Well, listen, we don't have to agree on everything. Please give us your honest opinion.
Exactly. I do like to be a positive gamer, so I'm not just gonna dump on this thing. It looks polished for what it is. I think this has been a gigantic misstep of a reveal since the very first day.
Yes,
they
I
didn't
agree.
show the gameplay. They're yammering on about games as a service and future content and exclusives for different consoles and everything. Like, that's not good. And then they showed this footage behind the scenes again at a different show, which was leaked online. Which that's not a good look. A lot of people got to see it on a terrible cell phone, shitty angle, everything else. And then they've come out and showed it again. Now, this is the very beginning training level. You all know it. The one that's like, to walk forward, push forward. Oh, really? Is that what we're doing in games now? Thanks. I understand that that's the level that they showed. And why? I really don't. It is insanely on rails. That's all you're doing is holding forward. If you even need to, as say Iron Man, it looks like he just does everything himself, and you tap a few buttons and he automatically shoots everything with auto aim. I was going through the comment sections of these videos, man, and it's not good. There a lot of people are just yawn, snooze fest. This looks boring. It looks by the numbers. Is this a cell phone game with good graphics? Is this Lego Marvel with good graphics?
Wow.
And I do honestly, I kind of feel the same way. It wasn't deep. Everything was moving slow. The enemies walked out and kind of waited to get hit by that foam Mjolnir hammer that Thor is using that just kind of thuds when he hits people. I found the writing and the quips to be, I don't know, I don't know. 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 I don't know cringe. I mean, if they're trying for cringe and cheesy because it's kind of tongue-in-cheek comic book, they nailed it, man. In my opinion, they nailed it. These characters don't shut up. Every punch, every kick, every this, every that, they've got something to say, and my eyes are spinning. They're doing so many circles, man. I couldn't take it. I really couldn't.
So basically, you're saying your eyes rolled in the back of your head multiple times.
Multiple times, man. 360 is not enough. They were doing 4K spins, bro. Like, the game looks beautiful. It really does. This is now the third time, actually, sorry, that I've seen this footage. And to know that if I get this game, when I play this level, it's going to be exactly the same. Nothing will change. There's just the training level, I feel, was the worst way to show off your first gameplay to the public, which took way too long. And I mean, it's neat that they're going to have different characters and that the play styles are going to somewhat change up. It's neat that they're pulling from the movies, but that also makes it kind of weird when you see movie-esque, but then the characters themselves don't look like the movie characters. Like, it's not the faces. We all know that.
They're not the voices either. A lot of people were taken aback by that. Yeah.
And actually, I was kind of shocked at the actual talent involved in the voices. These are like well-known, big-time voice actors in the industry. And I was kind of like, I almost think they're going for cheesy. They're like, let's write this and perform it cheesy, superhero-y. Like, every time Thor opened his mouth, I was just, what am I hearing? And I was just kind of shocked because the talent involved is really big. I think this game, I don't know, man. People are hyped. At the same time, people feel like I do, and everywhere in between. So I think it's a bit of a mess. They've got a bit of a hill to climb ahead of them for a lot of people, myself included, especially. Like, I'm at the bottom of the mountain on this one, man, and this thing's at the tippity top. I'm not sure if I'm going to even try. I just, it's not doing it for me. It's not doing it for my crew of close gamers, which is unfortunate because we do like those type of looter games as a servicey, stuff like that. We do like Destiny. We do like Anthem. We do like Division. So if this game was going to do something like that with superheroes, it sounded fantastic. But I personally feel it has been one misstep after another. This gameplay included, I found it very dull, boring, and by the numbers. At least Bloke Widow looks like a woman now because, geez, if she didn't just look like Thor with long hair. Speaking of hair, like, Tomb Raider has some of the best hair physics I've ever seen in a game. It's fantastic. What happened in this game?
I don't know.
Wig that they plop on everybody, and I'm kind of like, whoa, this is the same dev team that brought us some of the greatest hair I've ever seen in gaming. Like, gaming hair is almost always terrible. Everyone's got a buzz cut or is wearing a helmet or a hat because hair is hard to do. It is. And they nailed it with Tomb Raider, and then all of a sudden this Avengers game is kind of like back to 360 year 2 hair in my I'm just kind of like, oh.
Well, listen,
so I'm really glad you're hyped. I'm glad that other people are. It does look polished for what it is, and I do think it will be a lot deeper and more than this demo level showed. I really do, but I think it was a poor showing.
Okay, I mean, listen, everyone's entitled to their opinion. Obviously, again, I say this all the time. Not every game is for every gamer. Noof Nukem, I want to go to you next on this, dude, because I don't know how you feel about the superhero genre. I know that you were excited about Spider-Man for the PS4. What were your takeaways from this 20-minute gameplay reveal at Gamescom?
I loved it. I'm not going to lie. I thought it looked fantastic. Every time I see it, it looks better. I will agree that, yes, the cheese is high as El Fromage in there. You can smell it with your nose, the cheesy lines, but the graphics itself looked awesome. The animation was dope. And so when the Hulk came out and started wrecking stuff, that's when I got super hyped because I love the Hulk. I think he's just a big, fun, silly oaf. I like that character a lot. Like I said, the voices, though, didn't do it for me. I mean, like I said, they got some big talent behind it, but the way that they deliver the lines is bad. I know, like I said, we don't have the actual movie character likenesses, although the costumes are almost identical to the movie stuff and things like that. I mean, I applaud what they're going for there. And at the end of the day, I think that's here nor there. I don't think that's going to be the defining factor of that game. And the game is going to sell like gangbusters. I mean, it's the Avengers. It's one of the biggest properties in the world. It's very recognizable. So kids and adults alike are going to play it. Hopefully they got some good co-op stuff because that would be awesome. awesome. We see co-op being done with Marvel Ultimate Alliance and done pretty well. I mean, obviously this game is on a much, much larger scale and scope than a Marvel Ultimate Alliance. It's probably a little bit harder to do. You're also talking about really high fidelity graphics for this game, but I'm really excited. I thought the gameplay looked awesome. The Taskmaster was pretty cool. It was an awesome battle between him and Scarlet there, or what do you call it? The
Black Widow.
Black Widow. I like how you just call her Scarlett Johansson. We wish it was Scarlett Johansson. The game would probably sell even extra. The only thing that would get me more excited is if this was a Justice League game and it features Superman, because I just love the DC stuff a little bit more. But I think it looks good. I mean, I'm probably in the minority. I don't know. Some people are really hating on the game, but I'm excited for it. It looks like it's going to be an awesome, a lot of fun. Great. I don't know if this is like a starting level in the game, but a pretty good way to go. Well, the stakes are high to get the game going, and you're on the Golden Gate Bridge or whatever the hell they call it there in San Francisco, and there's explosions and it's just action packed. And like I said, the textures and the lighting in this game look amazing. Like I said, outside of the cheesy dialogue, there was nothing in there that really turned me off. I can't wait for this game. I'm going to be pre-ordering it, and I can't wait to dive in and become an Avenger next year. Nice.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to hear that you enjoyed it, because I'm right there with you. I was super excited. I watched the trailer multiple times. The characters seem like big. They're big on the screen. I like that. I really enjoy the detail that was in each character. Zemi Games, I want to go to you next on because I know you are, of course, feeling your way into the Marvel Universe, which I have to congratulate you on by watching all the films. But even though the superhero genre may never have been your thing, this looks like it's going to be telling a very, very intense, strong story, and you live for games like that. What did you see in this trailer, and were you excited?
Yeah. No, I definitely agree with So Shady and Nukem. The voice acting, like, it just seemed kind of cheesy. Like whenever Thor lifts that car off the guy, he's like, "You're lucky that I'm mighty," or something like that.
You're lucky I'm mighty.
Yeah, I mean, there you go. Good job. No, but like, I don't know. I mean, I really, really like the way that the game's looking. It looks very well. Like, at least the very first mission looks very linear. I don't know if the entire game's going to be like that, and if it is, that doesn't really bother me. One kind of concerning thing that I always have when it comes to like superhero games, and that's a big reason why I'm usually standoffish from them, is a lot of them seem to be run through different levels and just button mash the crap out of it. And this game kind of looks like that too, but it also looks like there's going to be a lot of cinematic moves, which I think is going to hopefully keep it interesting for me. I don't know if I'm going to buy it day one, but I'm definitely probably going to buy it. But yeah, as far as like the game goes, though, what I'm probably most excited for is just the story of it, because it looks to be a very, very linear game. It kind of seems like the gameplay is a little bit less important to them because, like I said, I mean, it does look like there's quite a lot of like button mashing to it. But the story and the cinematics and the characters all look absolutely fantastic. And so I personally can't wait to see more from the game.
Yeah, me too. I mean, like I said, we're going to see. It's going to be from what has been described by Square Enix themselves, and of course Crystal Dynamics, is that this is going to be an ever-growing story arc. It's going to start with whatever the tale they're telling now, and grow over the next set of years. It's going to be a games as a service that has been confirmed. All of the additional characters and levels and things are going to be added for free. That has also been confirmed. There are going to be microtransactions that are cosmetic only. That has been officially confirmed. At the start of the game, I believe that each character is going to have, I think I read somewhere where it was like 10 outfits. Now, listen, I'm going to be honest with you. You take a person like myself. First of all, Captain America is one of my favorite heroes. Right up there with Spider-Man, and I put Captain America just a smidge, higher than, because I like to associate myself to Captain America and the way I handle myself, with my prior career and the way I am now. If they have different outfits for him, like for instance his MCU outfit from Infinity War, or even more so Endgame, I'm going to buy it. The problem that we have to make sure is that this doesn't become a Fortnite kind of a situation where an outfit or several outfits $20. Now, if it's grossly priced like that, well, I'm not going to buy them. But they did confirm this, folks. Every outfit that is in the game is unlockable through play. So I guess you're going to be doing separate missions, or you'll have to do certain things within the said mission, but everything is unlockable if you don't want to spend any real world money. And I think that is the big difference. But Luke Steele, I want to get your opinion on this, dude. Did you get a chance to look at the video, and are you not excited, or are you excited for this game?
Yeah, I watched it a couple of times, I think, and I'm kind of excited and not excited from what they showed anyway. I thought it looked visually really nice, although as Shady was saying, the hair was really off-putting actually. And Thor's face kind of looks like, those like creator character faces. It looks a lot like that. I don't know quite, like Thor in general, just like does not look good. His model doesn't look good. The voice acting is kind of bad. And also it's a bit kind of throws me off when Nolan North is in a game just being Nolan North, because it's really clear that that's who that's who he is. And I like I tend to always like kind of big cinematic linear levels, not for the an entire game, but so I don't mind that being in the tutorial. And I think impressions on gameplay are probably better to take when we see how more open-ended mission structures are. I think someone said after being at Gamescom that essentially after that mission you go to a kind of hub, and then you can launch missions which will be kind of critical single-player story ones, and then your kind of co-op missions as well. So I'll be interested to see how they work. But yeah, I think like Shady said as well, the things the other things I was put off a little by were, that section was so on the rails, that it was as if I don't know, like the Iron Man bits were really kind of contained, and I'd be interested to see how areas later in the game act for Iron Man, who needs a lot of space. You need a lot of area to be able to play with that. I really like the Hulk gameplay. I thought that was really cool, and I thought that the Hulk's model is like by far the best model in that game. He looks fantastic. I'm a bit wary of the games as a service type stuff. It just depends on how they implement it. I don't really, I'm more interested in kind of gameplay and story rather than how long the game's going to last, how long it's going to keep being padded out. But I am excited, but tentatively so. I need to see more kind of later game stuff to see if it's going to be a must buy.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I mean, it is 6501 unless there's going to be some sort of a collector's edition, and you can rest assured that if there's one, I'm going to probably buy it because I'm a Marvel freak nasty. But you know what? Listen, again, everybody had amazing opinions, and what I love about this panel and about many panels that I put together is not everyone's going to agree. People are going to have different opinions, and that's what makes these shows so much fun. But I do want to move on to a bit of a sad story within the industry. And of course, I'm glad, we have Noof Nukem, who's going to have a big opinion about this. But more importantly, we have someone within the law, who works within the law field that might be able to come at this from a different angle. In a story that I pulled from the pages of Kotaku. Now, I don't go to them ever. But because they reported upon this story first, I feel it's necessary to not only give them credit, but use the story that they reported on simply because they were the first to do it. Apparently, and confirmed, GameStop lays off over 100 people, including nearly half of the Game Informer staff. And this is more evidence that the digital future may, in fact, be killing the industry slowly from within. The struggling retail chain GameStop laid off 100 employees today, both at its corporate headquarters in Grapevine, Texas, and at other offices, including the Game Informer magazine in Minnesota, where nearly half Nearly half of the editorial staff lost their jobs due to this cut. And here is GameStop's response. As part of our previously announced GameStop reboot initiative to transform our business for the future and improve our financial performance, we can now confirm a workforce reduction that was implemented impacting more than 120 corporate staff positions, representing approximately 14% of our total associates based at our company headquarters, as well as some other offices. A GameStop spokesperson told us directly to Kotaku in a statement. And this is the continue. I just want to keep reading the statement because it gets worse. While these changes are difficult, they were necessary to reduce costs and better align our organization with efforts to optimize the business to meet our future objectives and success factors. We recognize that this is a difficult day for our company and particularly for those associates impacted. We appreciate their dedication and service to GameStop and are committed to supporting them during this time of transition, which sounds like corporate bullshit, but hold on a sec. Now, if you don't know who Andy McNamara is, he is the head dude at Game Informer, and I just want to say this. I respect Andy significantly. I've never had a chance to meet him. I was hoping to meet him at E3 2019. I, in fact, did not get that chance. Game Informer, for me personally, is a magazine that reminds me of the good old days. And Noof Nukem will appreciate that because, you know, I'm not sure if you had the same magazines in Canada, but here in the States, we had magazines like EGM, Nintendo Power. We had magazines like Gamers Republic, Die Hard Gamer. These were classic magazines written by some classic journalists, which I still heavily miss. And the Game Informer magazine is read and written very similar to those good old days. But I want to read what exactly Andy McNamara had to say. Now, the layoffs blindsided the staff at Game Informer. Seven of the popular magazine editors announced on Twitter this afternoon that they had been laid off, including one who said he was on vacation when it happened. I mean, talk about scumbag alert. Okay, so this is what Andy McNamara had to say. This was a direct statement to Kotaku. I'm trying to get things right with my people. I love Game Informer, its people, its readers, and more than any corporation could, I will address all of these issues when I can, but for now I need to focus on my Game Informer family who has been affected by this move. Now, I've gone fully digital. I think I've said that multiple times on many shows that I've guested on and I've produced and hosted myself. Many of the community has done the same, though many people like Noof Nukem, who happens to be on the panel today, and it's just great timing, have not gone digital for his own reasons. Now, I was a physical media guy for years, and I just find it much easier and less clutter to have 900 plus games on 14 terabytes on my Xbox. And I have a 2 terabyte and the I believe it's a 1 terabyte that came with the God of War. So I have 3 terabytes on my PS4, and I have a 2 terabyte which I don't really use that much for my Nintendo Switch. I have a lot of games, but their saves they're just not that big. But here's the thing. This is my question to the panel. Of course, I want to get the chat's opinion on this because this is a bad move across the board for everyone. Everyone that's affected. This is not a good week for them. What are your takes? And I'll start with Noof on this. I really want to get your opinion. What are your takes, Noof, on this very sad news? And do you see GameStop ever actually recovering from this, this move? Because they're dying every day. But more importantly, do you honestly believe that these cuts, along with possible others, are to blame because of the digital future that's upon us?
Oh, well, man, this is a topic that really hits home for me. I'm going to keep waving my sword into that fight until I no longer can fight no more. I feel like the guy who showed up to a fight with my little 3-foot sword, and the guy pulls out the big old M60 and is like, let's do this, son. So, look, it hits home for me. I mean, I'm a child of the 80s. I'm a child when everything was physical and tangible, as you mentioned, Boom. I mean, I grew up with the Nintendo Power. I grew up with GamePro. I grew up with EGM. I grew up with Next Generation magazine.
Yes.
I grew up with computer games and video game entertainment. I must have had about 6 or 7 magazines rolling through my collection each and every month, and I looked forward to going to the store to buy said magazine, coming home, reading it cover to cover, without pop-up ads, without needing an internet connection, without needing all of the other bullshit that we have. Look, people say options are good, options are great, and choices are great. But you know what? The only thing that digital ultimately has done is created a lot of convenience, but it's taken away a lot of options. Because if you're the person like me who still prefers to hang on to the way I like to consume my media, I'm kind of shit. I'm up a creek without a paddle. I'm seeing store after store after store. I go into a magazine rack now, and guess what kind of magazine I can't find? I can't find video game books anywhere. It's one of the biggest mediums on the planet. Is bigger than movies. I can't find them. Oh, if I want to find books about makeup and clothing and all that bullshit, yeah, they're up to yin yang. But find a book on a game, nah, that don't happen, man. Look, even strategy guides don't hardly exist anymore. We saw, who was it last year just closed, or one of the strategy guide publishers for video games closed up, and I forget which name it is. But you see what I'm saying here. And the thing that disturbs me the most is everybody says nothing until it's gone, and then everybody misses it. No, but what disturbs me is how easily we dismiss all this stuff, and we don't bat an eye at the fact that thousands of people just lost their job. Another great business has closed its doors, blah, blah, blah. So pretty soon we're going to come down to Amazon is fucking going to rule the whole bloody roost. Everybody's going to buy everything from Amazon, including toilet paper, you name it. This is the way it's going. Why not have a best of both worlds? And it's on the consumer. At the end of the day, we're the ones pulling the strings. It's not the CEOs, because if we're not supporting these companies and their operating costs are much higher than the return on investment, and their stocks are plummeting, this is what happens. GameStop is part of it. Now, mind you, the other side is too often we see massive corporations and companies that like to use the economy as a crutch or as their safety box as to laying off employees when we know they have the revenues to do it. Hell, Walmart is almost single-handedly putting more people out of business than any other corporation in the history of companies. They come up to Canada here and fucking run everybody out. They bought everybody up, ran them out of business. They got their only store, and you know what? You walk in, you can't even find a cashier hardly because we don't want to pay people. Yeah. But they got all this money, right? So, if you're the only guy running the roost, how the fuck are you complaining that you're not making the profits? This is what I'm saying. It is really sad. Game Informer is one of the few publications still going. It's sad that they get hurt by this too. I still love reading magazines, and I will continue to read them as long as there's one to find. And this is the other problem. I just can't find shit when it even comes to CDs. I got to go to a specialty store. There's few and far between. Yeah. And I'm lucky then to find some of the things that I want. You go into Walmart, if they do carry anything, it's going to be your top 10, your top 40, your kitty-ass degree. And others in the chat.
Who has those CDs? New Amazon, I hear. They got the CDs for you. You just order them up. No. They'll mail them to you by drone.
Yeah. Other things says Walmart is needed. I'm not saying Walmart isn't needed. Walmart serves its purpose, but you're missing my point. Is Walmart drove out competition. And what happened here in Canada as well, when Walmart drove the competition out, guess what happened at their stores? They came in with the nice, hey, everything's cheap at Walmart. But when they came up here and they got enough stores and people had no other choice but to shop at them, their prices started to skyrocket. Do you see what I'm saying? And then, of course, they lay people off. This is what they do. They get big, they lay people off. And then they use it as the economy's on the downturn. So let's get rid of a couple 100,000 people because they don't need work. They don't need jobs, that sort of I could go on a crazy ass rant, like I said, and there's one I'm not going to win. I understand why digital is there. I understand its convenience. But bottom line is people come down to money and they want want, and they want to save money, and we all do too. But at the end of the day, like I said, the urge to save a couple of dollars also costs people a lot of money somewhere else. So you win, someone else loses. It's just not a simple like they win, we win, we're all happy. Somebody scores on one side and somebody else goes home on the other. It's that simple. It's sad, but it is part of. I guess it's part of the beast. It's part of the way our economy is going. It's part of the way video games are going. They're transitioning to the digital trend. It's more and more so all the time. I still buy my stuff physically. I'm going to continue to do it until there are no other options. But it is tough because I'm already seeing the space in stores like Walmart, which I do a lot of my shopping at because I have no other choice. It's either Walmart or EB for me, like 90% of the time. And I walk in and I see the shelf space shrinking and shrinking and shrinking.
Yeah, no, you're
shrinking.
right.
I wish my waist shrank like that
Yeah.
because I'd be really skinny. But yeah, but you know, and that means when they shrink, it means less choices. They start going with the big AAA games, and a lot of the littler stuff starts getting less space, or it's shoved off in some weird ass bargain bin where you can't find it anyway. That sort of stuff. So for me, I'm the one getting my teeth kicked in here, and it's going to continue till my teeth are gone. I'll leave the rant at that. I just think it's freaking sad. It's a sign of the times. I hope those guys survive. I hope they continue to at least push out a publication for us hardcore dudes. Like I said, choices are good, but choices are great for everybody else. But people like Noof Nukem who just don't want to go that route yet, you know?
Yeah, no, listen, there's nothing wrong with being set in your ways. There's nothing wrong. You know, look, let me just say this. You know, you take a guy like myself, right? Like, okay, I have 900 plus games for my Xbox One. That includes everything from OG Xbox all the way up into the, current stuff. And it's a great number to say, yeah, 900 games I got, that's great. But I remember back in the days, and this is going back only a couple of years ago, that I would be like very excited to show off my collection in pictures. Like, look at all of these game discs boxes. It would really show off your stuff. But I'm interested to hear what So Shady has to say on this. What are your opinions on not only Game Informer losing half of its staff, which is very, very sad because it is a great publication. But what do you think about is it corporate greed? Is it they didn't plan properly at GameStop? They thought that it was always going to be physical forever. What are your thoughts on this whole scenario?
It's a bit of a mess, but that being said, I'm not a fan of companies merely keeping people employed because it's, let's call it the polite thing to do. It's like a jobs program. If there's no one buying the magazine, if it's not got the circulation that they're looking for, we all know that GameStop is bleeding from every artery on its body all the money it has. Like, this company is dying so fast that in order to keep something around that is just almost for nostalgia reasons, like, unless this magazine has got some serious viewership going with it and whatnot, I can understand why they would have done it. This isn't one of those corporations that's just printing money Walmart style and decided to lay off 7 editors at a magazine. That's not that. This is a company that is dying itself and is doing everything it can to try and exist, tomorrow, for God's sakes. So I kind of feel for them as well. They're trying to trim, quote unquote, the fat, the unnecessary, and the no longer. Like, I come from an era as well. I'm an 80s kid. I loved video game magazines. I was buying 4 or 5 a month. We get the same magazines the Americans do up here in Canada. We are essentially the Americas just toned down. Same news, same channels, same movies, same books, same everything. Down a little bit and you got yourself a Canadian, essentially. But I love those books, man. I love those magazines. I'd have my magnifying glass out as a kid looking at the screenshots to take in those 16-bit glorious graphics. I love it. But that era is gone, and it's not digital games' fault. It's just the internet's media. I can click on 1 million articles on the internet super fast for free, or I can buy a magazine where the news in it is already old. Like, that's just kind of the reality of it. Newspapers are dying. That's not video games' fault, going digital, that newspapers are dying. This is just the internet in general and its ability to distribute information fast and cheap and relatively efficiently if you know how to use the damn thing. So I'm like, it sucks. I do think it's kind of, I don't know, let's call it funny that everyone is sensationalizing it with their headlines. Half are fired, half the people. And then the details are like 7 out of, it's kind of like, oh, I mean, that's still almost half. It is. but it sure sounds way more sensationalized when
Well,
you're just
when you say half, you're talking about they lost 300 people. Yes.
Huge. You're like, oh my God, half of them. How many were there? 2. Oh, geez. So they let go one guy, but half sounds devastating. So, I mean, that media is what it is. It sensationalizes absolutely everything. But we're talking about 7 people that lost their job in print media, something that most of us probably didn't even know still was a thing, was this magazine. Didn't even know. So, I mean, that's what it is. It sucks. If you're a person, you lose your job, it sucks. But, I mean, you gotta diversify. I feel for Noof and guys like him. But part of me is kind of like, hey, I'm looking at a dude back in the early 1900s riding a horse, screaming at everyone buying a car, saying, hey, man, where's my lane? Where's my lane on the highway? Where's my horse lane? All you automobile drivers going 100 miles an hour because it's more convenient. Yeah, it is. I'm sorry.
I love to smell a horse shit in the morning.
There's a little bit of time. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Most of humanity gets dragged into the future, kicking and screaming by a very few people that can see the way of the future. They can see it coming a mile away, and it's those few that lead the rest of us that are just terrified of change, anything different, until it's not bad. It's not going to kick me in the dick when I push the on button. Okay, I was worried there, but it's all good now. And then the rest of the population adopts it. But we're all slow adopters at the end of the day. And I think this is just kind of the way of the world, man. Noof's right with Walmart. It's more so with, say, a smaller town, 50,000 people, 100,000. I live in Calgary. We got 1.6 million people here, 1.5 million. There are Walmarts here, but we have stores everywhere and whatnot. And actually, because of Walmart, it's forced our other bigger corporations around to compete. They've had to lower their prices and stuff. So while it's bad in some areas, if not even devastating, it can actually be kind of good in others. So like, it's just this weird give take type of thing. Me and my whole crew are all digital in games, all digital. And it's not because of the convenience of just being able to play the game right at midnight or not having a collection of plastic anymore in my house. It's not that. It's 100% because of game share, because I can share my games with a friend, essentially giving us 2 for 1 with every single purchase. Every single game that I buy, my friend can play with me, mind you, not just only when I'm not playing, but at the same time. So every cooperative game is 1 copy between 2 of us. It's fantastic. It is way too undeniable of a deal for us that we just don't do physical anymore. Otherwise, we did enjoy going to the midnight launches, lining up with fellow gamers, talking about our hype. We enjoyed building the collection and seeing all your games stack, grow with time. I would sell games that I have no interest in anymore. I have no problem buying used. Like, I do enjoy that. And I would go back to physical if I wasn't allowed to share my digital stuff. But because I can, and it is literally 2 for 1, it's just way too good of a deal. And there's just way too many games coming. Expensive hobby for me to try and play everything that I have to do it this way, essentially. Otherwise, I'm just missing out on way too many games, and so are my buddies. So that's our reasoning for why we're going digital. Unfortunately, for others, there's ramifications. More and more people are doing the same, whether they game share or not. And that is affecting physical sales. There's less reason for some stores to have a massive 50-foot long aisle of games because they're just not selling as much as they used to anymore. GameStop is dying because most of their business was literally giving you pennies on the dollar for your game and turning around and selling it for $5 less than the damn new copy.
Game. Yeah,
that was their business structure.
Yeah,
and that's why they're being brutalized. Is people are not trading in games as often. A lot of them reason is because they're going digital. And I think a lot of the reason is there's some damn good quality, long-term, multiple hundreds of hours long, or infinite in multiplayer or what have you, games out there that people just don't bother trading in anymore. So I just think that their business model wasn't a good one for the industry. Let's put it that way. They weren't giving money back into these developers at all. They were just making money carte blanche on selling you used games at a $5 savings to the customer. So they were making billions, and the industry saw nothing. I mean, think of that what you will. For some people, that's totally fine. That's the way ownership of things work. You own it, you can sell it. You don't have to give Ford any money when you sell your Mustang, that type of deal. That's fine. But to see another company that makes absolutely massive amounts of profits like they do, and in the store would actually push their used copies over their new copies first. Like, they were going out of their way to take care of themselves, which is fine. They're their own business. But if you enjoy seeing the industry flourish, GameStop wasn't essentially helping it so much, other than just giving a place for gamers to go and pick up a physical game and maybe meet other gamers. That was kind of really it.
Game Pass has been a huge kick in the teeth for GameStop and EB.
Absolutely, that's right, and that's got to have hurt something like GameFly and other things, right? Why would you want to pay $8 to rent a game for 3, 4, 5 days, whatever have you? Instead, you can pay the 10 and have 180 games for a month.
Yeah.
And and there's this big movement against renting games. You don't own it, and it's like, whoa, like, I'm not a new gamer. I've been gaming for over 30 years. I have still to this day played more games that I was renting from Blockbuster and whatnot than I have ever owned. I own over 600 games this gen. I've had over 100 plus, 150, almost 200 games last gen. I usually sit around 50 to 70 the year and how young I was, right? I would have fewer games when I was a kid, but I typically have a lot of games, but I rented a lot. That is what made me the gamer I am today, was having access to some of these games where I didn't have to pay full price. Blockbuster died, and all of a sudden I was forced to damn near buy everything. Or GameFly, and all of a sudden I'm waiting for the mail to mail me a game. It was a gone show. Gone show. Game Pass came along, and all of a sudden was like, throw us $10. Here's 180 games, including every single brand new day and date first party title. My God.
Yeah. Well, that would be
because of the pricing involved. I could not say no. It was like, yes, bring it on. On first party titles alone, I'm saving
hundreds.
Over $200 a year.
Hundreds.
Like, that's insane. Plus all the other games. That's just awesome. I played many games that I would never pay an actual dollar for, but they're great games. I just don't want to spend $20 on that indie title.
No, it makes perfect
score. So all this digital stuff, it's good in one way, it's bad in others, but like everything in the world, we're going forward, not backwards. We're not on horseback on the highway anymore, getting honked at by cars. The horses are gone. It's going to happen with digital, or not digital, it's going to happen with physical stuff, unfortunately, but I still think we're a long ways away. You can still buy vinyl records, for God's sakes. You just have to look for them. They're not available at every store. So it's going to get more difficult for those physical guys, unfortunately. But I don't think it's going to be completely extinct in the next even 10 years or more. I think it's around for a long time.
No, I absolutely agree. Like I said, I don't. Right now, especially the internet in this country is we're like 12th on the list for the United States when it comes to internet structure and dependability, and that's pathetic. I think the last time I checked was 13th. We might have moved up one spot to 12th in the last time I checked. That's not good. But I want to go to Zemi Games on this. We've known for a while GameStop has been struggling. And, they were going to hit the reset button at one point or another. It is also always sad to hear people lose their jobs because, obviously, you have to feed your families. When you say playing games, just because you play games doesn't mean you play games in real life. What are your opinions on them laying off half of the staff and also almost 100 more employees within their corporation?
I mean, it's definitely sad. And like, whenever things like this happen, like what I like to think about is like, for me personally, I understand it's a business. They, their top dollar is the main thing that's going to matter to them. And it should be, because that's how you're going to stay in business and keep everyone having a job. So, unfortunately, laying off people is just one of those bad things that happens. Probably the most disappointing thing for me is that they didn't give these people enough time. You know what I mean? Or at least it doesn't sound like they gave them enough time, like a 6-month notice or something. That way that they, could possibly try to find a job. Maybe they did. I'm not sure if they actually mentioned that in the article or not.
No, they were blindsided by this. That was confirmed.
They were blindsided?
Yeah.
Okay. See, that's what I just don't like about it. That's what I absolutely hate. It's like, I understand that people are going to get laid off, and that sucks, but, give them enough time, because I guarantee you it didn't, they didn't just get a memo on their table, or if they did, then they need to reevaluate themselves as a business, like 2 days ago saying, hey, just automatically lay off half of the Game Informer staff. I'm sure they probably knew that this was upcoming, at least for, this current quarter that we're in. They could have given, some idea to the employees before they just flat out laid them off. And now they're scrambling. That guy who's on vacation probably spent a lot of money. Now he's scrambling to try to find a new job so, he doesn't lose his house or something. So, I mean, that type of thing is definitely sad. You guys were talking about, like the digital age is kind of, a big reason for this. And I think it is to a certain point. A lot of people are getting their news from online websites, and a lot more people are probably getting their news from like YouTubers like me and you, Boom.
Right.
Man, a recent study came out there, Zemi, saying that a lot of today's youth, most of it actually apparently, is getting news from YouTubers. That's terrifying. Terrifying.
You know why that is? We don't like to read. That's the reason. We know how to read. We just don't like to read.
My goodness. And this is coming from 26-year-old folks. Understand the context.
But I think the biggest reason why we're seeing this with Game Informer, and I think a big reason why they took off half of the staff of Game Informer, is because a lot of those editors probably make $60,000-$70,000 a year. I would imagine. Probably.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So taking out half of them is going to save them a lot of money. And you also have to remember, a lot of people don't go to GameStop. Well, for me personally, the only reason why I had Game Informer was because I subscribed to their yearly annual membership. God, what was it called? Anyway, it was like $14.99, and you got like the little power up rewards, and that's the only reason why I got Game Informer. And I'm probably pretty sure that's probably the only reason why Game Informer as a magazine lasted so long, and we saw all of these other gaming magazines, crumble to the ground. It's because, well, they were selling a lot of issues through that program, and then, now since the digital ages came out, and then also, GameStop has made a lot of, gamers very upset with their, with their business practices. Tons of people are are just not going to GameStop. I couldn't tell you the last time I went into one. It was probably 3 years ago, 2 years ago, maybe. So a lot of people are not, subscribing to Game Informer, so they're not getting that magazine. And then, they have tried to do like the digital thing. Like whenever you subscribe to Game Informer at GameStop, you could, request to get the digital magazine that you could read on your tablet. And then, of course, they also have GameInformer.com, but there's so many other outlets out there. I just don't think it was sustainable for them, So I think that's a big reason why we're seeing this happen, is just because, flat out, people are not subscribing to, the rewards program at GameStop like they, used to be. Mm-hmm. And there's just not a reason for them to keep on as many people as, as they're keeping on. I think it's unfortunate and it sucks, but, I'm to blame, just like, hundreds or thousands or possibly, a million other gamers, because I just don't go to GameStop. I don't subscribe to that service anymore. So, it's unfortunate, but it is what it is.
Yeah, I read that that the magazine came out in '91, and that the editor-in-chief has been there for every single issue except for the very first one. He missed the very first one. He's been there the whole time. It's like 28 years.
Yeah, and Andy McNamara has been there for a very, very, very long time.
That's insane.
And back in the days, folks, I used to be before my career that I'm retired from. I worked at not GameStop, but FuncoLand here in the States. And back in those days, in the early 90s, the Game Informer was like a pamphlet. It had like 7 or 8 pages, and it has ballooned into this magazine that I really, really like. But Luke Steele, I want to get your opinion, but before I do, I have to thank 2 people. First of all, Michelle Alexandria with the outstanding and very generous $2 super chat. And Chris Hughes Sr., who has been in the chat for quite some time. Chris, thank you so much for being here. And also, thank you for the additional $5 super chat. He says, great show today. The Q&A is fantastic. Give me more. I want more. And yes, there's plenty more of show to give you. But before we move on to the next topic, I want Luke Steele to close us out. And I want to talk to you from a fan's point of view. Not so much that you have the inning workings of being a lawyer. When you hear that, we know that GameStop is bleeding from everywhere, basically. And, they're in a position right now where they need to be surgically repaired, and they're kind of just trying to stitch it up to kind of keep it moving. Are you surprised by the layoffs, and do you think this is just the first round?
Yeah, it's always it's always a real shame when people get laid off jobs. But as you say, it's you know, I don't envy kind of people that are in charge of GameStop, because I don't know what they can do to try and salvage that company. I would be very surprised if it existed within a few years. We have in fact, a similar situation in the UK. So we have our game stores. You know, the main kind of brand is called Game,
Right.
and you know, they were like GameStop. They were dominant back probably about 10 years ago, and before that as well. And you know, I like, I really dislike Game, and I disliked it back then because a lot of these stores didn't offer you very good value for money at all. They were, because they were so dominant, and you had you know, like little independent game stores that popped up, but you know, not related to Game, but they were also quite high priced. So when everything started moving to digital, and particularly obviously when Amazon come on the scene, etc., it's good for a consumer in that sense, because you know, that you're saving money in your pocket. But in the last few years, Game has had to have, you know, huge layoffs. It's been acquired and sold several times. They're now in the UK, what Game are doing, are branching out into esports to try and salvage their kind of business that way. I don't know how successful that will be. And you know, I think GameStop are in a similar situation where people just, you know, they don't care enough, I don't think, en masse about going into stores and buying games anymore, when you can get it all digitally and it's cheaper, you know, or at least you can order online and it's cheaper, you know, still. So it's you know, it's a real shame, but I don't think it'll be the last layoff that they have. I think it will just kind of gradually go down. But I mean, Game Informer as well is a real, because you know, even though that will obviously continue for now, I love Game Informer. I think they're fantastic. And we have, in the UK, we have a magazine called Edge.
Oh yes, Edge is fantastic. I used to import that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's really the only one, apart from like your official Xbox magazine, etc., that's still going. And I think that's in a Game Informer type position. But Edge is unconnected to any kind of game store or anything like that. It's just its own thing. So, and you know, like on the magazine front as well, I think it's a shame because, you know, I mean, I was born in 1990, but I, you know, even in the early 2000s, you know, I loved getting magazines, you know, picking up magazines and flicking through them, and they became like, you know, now we go to YouTube and, you know, you search for all the videos and you rewatch stuff all the time, you know, if you're hyped for it. But back then, you just kind of tear these magazines apart because they were the only source of information that you had really on these games. And I distinctly remember like picking up magazines when Doom 3 was announced,
Wow.
and looking at the visual stuff, and I was just absolutely blown away. And I'd pore over those screenshots, and the same happened with Half-Life 2. You know, I was just absolutely transfixed by that sort of stuff. And I feel like kind of that, a little bit of that magic's gone. And I think that's a real shame. It's great that there's still convenience, you know, to get your information as quickly as we do now, but the kind of magic of it's been lost, you know, the original kind of gaming magic. But yeah, it's only going to get worse as we go digital, and I'm as much to blame as I think like most of us are. Like, we just want to save money, or we just want the convenience of it. You know, and as streaming becomes a bigger thing, I'm quite lucky because I have a 1 gigabit connection, so I can get some good streaming. Yeah. And I've just got a Note 10 with unlimited 5G data, so nice, I'm like really set up for the future. Yes. Even though I prefer to play stuff locally, but it's just going to get worse, I think, for physical stores as people move towards it, which I think is a shame because you need competition from every source.
The way that magazines operate too, it's also a crutch in itself, because I just realized, like, this is a thing with the magazine industry. Those companies, say like OXM, they would have to get a review copy of games even earlier than, say, an internet outlet would, right? Yeah, because they have to go through the game, they have to write it up, then it's got to go through editing, and then it's got to go through the publishing, and then they have to go through the shipping, which can take days, if not weeks, to get to store shelves. So they're simply got to be working on a timeline that's about a month almost ahead. Because I don't know if you recall, but even when I was reading the last few episodes of OXM that I had, like you'd get a review for a game and it would literally already been reviewed on the internet sites, like sometimes nearly 2 months ahead. Right.
Yeah.
And they're trying. So by then you're kind of getting to the review and it's like, well, I've already seen about 100 reviews on this game. So now yours is not important really anymore at this point because the game's been out and people are already moved on to the next one. Right. So like it was a timeline factor too. That was a major killer. And that's an internet thing too. Right. Internet's been awesome. And it's also been a killer for a lot of mediums.
And I think
it's all brick and mortar stores that are hurting. Like the malls today exist for people to just kind of hang out in and window shop. I was just there actually last week, saw a pair of jeans I liked. I tried them on. They fit great. I got home and just bought them online for cheaper, and they were sent to me within 24 hours. I'm like, I know they fit.
That's just
They're
dirty.
fitting good. I'm gonna go buy them online.
That's just dirty, Shady. That's just dirty, man.
That's literally what the malls are basically set up to do. They hold way less product than ever. If you notice when you walk into most of these stores, they just have stuff on display. Like Tesla, for example, doesn't have car dealerships. They have a space that has a car, and you're like, that looks nice. I'd like to buy one. They'll take you to the internet and you order your Tesla from like the Tesla site, and they just mail it to you. They don't have your typical car dealerships like Ford and everyone else. And because of that shakeup, there was actually a huge thing about it. Like people were losing their minds. Dealership owners and stuff were fighting and trying to take it to court, trying to force Tesla to open up standard car dealerships because this new model was going to put their dealership potentially out of business in the future, right? Like this is just people shopping online in general, not just buying digital games. So as a digital gamer, I don't feel too guilty. It's just everyone is saving money, and it's more convenient to have a drone fly it into my backyard within a day and
Drop
just drop
the
it
package
off.
off
Like,
and you're done.
My
Or,
pizza's
baby,
incoming
welcome to the
right now,
future.
guys.
Yeah.
I mean,
teleports into my room like Star Trek, and bring it on, man. I'm all over that. You know?
Sorry, go on, Sammy.
Oh, I was just going to say, speaking of which, I really miss payphones, like going around finding them, putting in the coins, dialing. I really miss that. I wish that those would come back too.
Is this language you're speaking?
And this is coming from a 26-year-old. Luke, do you want to finish your point? Because I want to move on to the next topic.
I was just going to say, I think it's funny how stores have just become basically window shopping now. So, like, you'll go, if I'm looking for, say, a TV, I'll go to a store to see it, but then I won't order it from that store. I'll just
you'll go on your phone, find it cheaper, and order it from there. Yes,
exactly. And I think just one final point as well. I think specifically related to magazines. I think one of the biggest things that people, or at least I used to get magazines for, were the demo discs, where you could like load up like a new demo of something, and that was like a huge draw of buying like a gaming magazine. And that's just like, you look at them now and they're literally like sizzle reel trailers and stuff like that, and it's just kind of a bit because we've just gone completely away from that.
Yeah. Well, again, at the end of the day, it's really sad to hear that these folks lost their jobs. I hope that a guy like Andy McNamara, that guy, he builds relationships with people, and I'm sure that he's going to reach out to maybe some of the other editorials, like maybe the Kotakus, maybe the Game Rants, maybe the Gaming Bolts, and say, hey, listen, this journalist worked for me for X amount of years. They just lost their job. Hopefully, and knowing, and again, I don't know Andy McNamara personally, but if you've seen the guy in interviews and you read his work, he seems like a real smart dude that has loyalty to his people. So real quick though, before we move on to a story you are only gonna find on Breakfast with Boom, I have to do two big shout outs. First of all, Enrique from the Basement Radio Arcade is here. Welcome, dude. He drops a $2 super chat. And I have to thank Philly Eagle, who is always here supporting so many content creators. He is a new channel member. Philly Eagle, thank you so much for that. I really do greatly appreciate you becoming a channel supporter. But I want to talk about, again, a story that no one's talking about. It's originally written by me, and you're only going to find on Breakfast with Boom. Now, for the last few months, there has been rumblings on places like the 4chan forums, and of course Reddit. And again, take this with a grain of salt. This is an opinion piece. But there has been rumblings that Metal Gear Solid 6 may in fact be in the works at Konami, without original director, of course, Hideo Kojima. who is hard at work putting the finishing touches on the PlayStation exclusive and very strange Death Stranding. Now, to be completely honest here, chat and panel, I have zero confidence that Konami could in fact pull off anything stellar like Metal Gear Solid 1, 2, 3, or 4, and depending if you like 5, I happen to really enjoy 5. But there's another direction they could go in, one that I hope that they do. How does a Metal Gear Solid remake sound on the same lines as a Resident Evil 2 remake from Capcom that was released earlier this year? Because to be honest, I think that's the direction they could go. And, you know, if you don't remember, the original Metal Gear Solid released on the PlayStation in 1998, and it was, I remember watching on a videotape, by the way. A videotape, folks. That's how what an old bastard I am. I actually bought a $20 E3 videotape and people in the Bronx are going to remember this, a place in Yonkers called Dragon's Den. The guy that ran it went to E3, he taped it with one of those big cameras, and he was selling the tapes for $20. And my brother Neo Mental and I sat there and watched Metal Gear Solid 150,000 times. We were completely blown away. And if you remember, in March of 2004, Konami Computer Entertainment of Japan tasked Silicon Knights to remake Metal Gear Solid on the GameCube, and it was glorious. It was such a masterpiece. It was called Metal Gear Solid: The Twin Snakes, and it was a remaster, a re-envision of the original game, and it was when I tell you, a masterpiece. So now now you say to yourself, well, boom, if Konami isn't going to do it, who do you trust to pull off a remake in the same caliber of Resident Evil 2? Like, obviously, for me personally, Resident Evil 2, right now, as of this show this morning, Game of the Year for Boom. Resident Evil 2, 98, my favorite game of all time, has been now replaced by Resident Evil 2, 2019, followed by 98 right underneath it. It is a master stroke of genius. It is a homage to the original in every sense of the word. If you are a survival horror fan, I urge you to try and pick it up. It is one of Capcom's finest creations in the history of the company. And when I say it gets a BoomStick stamp of approval, I cannot say any more. But with that said, if you recall, in 2017, Sony announced the remake of Shadow of the Colossus. Now, the original obviously sold very well for them. It was a massive mammoth type of a game. The remake was another stroke masterpiece. When I say master stroke, it was amazing. Now, in truth, the controls still played like the PS3 game, but graphically, it was gorgeous. Now, the people that did that is a very, very famous company that does remakes known as Bluepoint. If I were Konami and I wanted to cash in on how big the Metal Gear Solid franchise still can be in 2019 or 2020 or 2021, whenever it releases, I would reach out to Bluepoint and say, listen, here's the original 2 games. Here's the 98. Here's the 2004 GameCube version. We need something that looks like Resident Evil. Can you do it? They would say, yes, we can. Here is my question to the panel. Bluepoint is one of the most respected developers within the industry when it comes to remasters or remakes. This could be a huge win for Konami and a huge win for the gamers, more specifically, if this came to pass. Do you want to see Konami make a Metal Gear Solid 6, or would you like to see a Metal Gear Solid remake? Does that sound better? And I'll start with Noof Nukem.
Well, I like your pick of Bluepoint. There's no question they have done a variety of fantastic ports and translations on games. One of the ones I would pick would probably be Panic Button, who have been making miracles happen over on the Nintendo Switch. So I'm thinking if those guys can get some of the best games looking and running on the Switch, like Doom and Wolfenstein 2, then imagine what they would be left with if they had to make another game with, say, a console that's a little bit more capable. So, as far as the game, I have no doubts we'll see another Metal Gear. Konami's kind of fallen on hard times. They've almost lost all relevancy. Capcom has resurged. Konami's kind of gone the opposite way and haven't had anything relevant in the last couple of years outside of their what do you call it? Their soccer game, Pro Evo Evolution or whatever that maybe is keeping them afloat. But even then, I think it takes a big backseat to FIFA. So they definitely need a new game. I'd be actually interested to see what happens with Metal Gear without Hideo Kojima behind the helm. Maybe for a change, their games won't have 2-hour cutscenes, and they might actually make a bit more sense. But yeah, put an established developer behind it. Let them make it in their own vision. Obviously, it's a great character. It's a solid franchise. People know it and love it, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see the franchise return at some point. But just don't do anything weird. And like Metal Gear Survive did not sell well at all. It's quickly forgotten about if anybody even remembers it to begin with. So stick to what you know. Make a great game. Between Metal Gear and Splinter Cell, both of those franchises need to come back in a big way. But they need a capable developer, stays close to the roots, and like I said, really ups the ante. So that's all I can say. But if you're picking one of those two, Blue Point, definitely a great choice, and Panic Button for sure.
Nice, great point. Real quick, before I get to So Shady on this, a new channel member in the form of Matt Burns, who has always been in the chat supporting the Double Barrel Gaming and everything that I do. Thank you so much, Matt. That is very, very kind of you. It is greatly appreciated. So Shady, I want to get your opinion on this. Listen, Metal Gear Solid 6, we don't know what story they would tell. We don't know what the game would be about. But we do know that a Metal Gear Solid reboot could be glorious. What are your opinions on Panic Button, or even, of course, the original Blue Point stepping up to the plate to do a remake?
Say, Boom, you saying we don't know what the game would be about sounds par for the course for Metal Gear, if you ask Shady. I was a huge fan of Metal Gear Solid on the PlayStation 1. I got that game, and my buddies and I destroyed it in 2 days after school. Like, I played it, they watched, and we loved it. There was some cool stuff. You whip out your cigarettes to see the lasers and plugging in the second controller to beat Psycho Mantis. Like, there was some really neat things in there. But as much as I was a big fan of it, we were like, this game is batshit crazy, man. My God, sitting here for 25 minutes watching just a green screen with two poorly animated heads jabbering back and forth with like intense military jargon going on and on about some Metal Gear mech and God knows whatever lore. We had no idea what was happening, but we loved it. We enjoyed it. But that's kind of where it ended for a big chunk of Metal Gear for my crew and I. We do own, like, parts of us own basically all of them, and a bunch of us do play it, but I've never beaten any of them since then. I've tried them out and walked away from them. I did like Metal Gear Revengeance, but that's because
that was great. That was another one.
I could hack and slash guys into ribbons, little bits, cutting fingers off and arms, and it's just half of his face. I loved it. It has wicked slice and dice mechanics, and that's what got me into it. I'm as far as the lore and all that kind of stuff, I'm not into it. Nothing bad to say about it at all. Some lands and is wicked. Some of it, even its most ardent fan base, is kind of like, what am I watching? No idea. And that's fine. Kojima is, he's Kojima. Let's just leave it at that. But I have no faith in Konami anymore to make more of this game and make it good. Without Kojima bringing his uniqueness to the title, if you will, I just don't think Konami could do much with it. That wouldn't just feel contrived and by the numbers as it gets, really. I'm not even sure how serious they are as a video game developer anymore. They're big on that with those pachinko machines, man.
Yeah,
Real
well, they have their
them.
gyms, they have their pachinko machines, and they have the one soccer game. So
soccer game. Yeah. So, like, as far as a remake goes, I think that could certainly be a successful thing for them, especially if it's done well. I would like to see remakes of those games, but not just like the Shadow of Colossus, where it was a prettier paint job over top of the same game engine. I think that's a neat thing, that we can have the original games running with like state-of-the-art current gen graphics overlapping it, kind of like what the Master Chief Edition did with the Halo Anniversary or Halo 2 Anniversary. Mm-hmm. That's really neat. But those games feel old. As much as Halo 2 remaster looks incredible, it feels like an old shooter. So I love what they did with Resident Evil 2 remake, which was a from the ground up remake. It wasn't just a prettier Resident Evil 2. It felt solid. It felt like a modern game. That's how you do a remake in my mind. So if they're going to do a remake, I would like it to just be more than a prettier 4K version of the game. It would be sweet if they could go in and really tweak the moment-to-moment gameplay and make it something much more modern and polished. That's at least that's what would get my interest again. I'm not so interested in going back and playing PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2 era games with a prettier paint job. Like I think it's hard to go back for me in the 3D era of gaming. Last gen is almost the first gen outside of a very few titles that I can go back to. Like Mario 64, it's fantastic. It's got amazing game design. It's really hard to look at. Like the N64 more than any of the 3D genre. It was the first 3D platform, right?
Yeah, it is bad.
So I have so much love and nostalgia for it, but almost every single time I turn it on and I'm like, my God, I wish I never turned that on. The realism, it's just nowhere near as good as the memory was, right? Like best left there. And I find it's the same with the Xbox and PS2 gen. And it was really kind of the later years in the 360 PS3 that I find are still playable today. Even they're starting to show their age. I think this is the first gen that's really going to be 3D playable for a long time. And this is just for me, of course. There are other guys out there that they're into whatever they're into, and that is totally fine. But I don't like to go back and play old 3D games. Like old Super Nintendo games, fantastic. That was the best of the best side-scrolling platformers. I think they played tight, but 3D, man, it took almost 2 gens, in my opinion, for it to get tight and good and really worth my time to go back to, with just so much awesomeness coming out today. So I hope that they pursue it, but I hope that if they do, it's something worth it and not just some kind of a cash grab because Metal Gear still has a name and a fan base. So yeah, I'll leave it at that.
That makes sense. That makes perfect sense. I mean, I agree with you. It would be great if it was done in the vein of Resident Evil 2, ground up. I do agree with you. Zemi, here's my question to you, my friend. Do you even know what a Metal Gear Solid is?
Yeah. I mean, I've never played one. I've seen like YouTube clips of it. It never really seemed very interesting to me.
Okay.
And I mean, and I'm just not really into like the Japanese style of games. Like there's very, very few games in that type of like genre, I guess, that I really kind of get into. So I don't really have very much to say, but what I do have to say is they're going to have to find a video game designer that is like just crazy.
The bananas.
Like, I mean, like borderline, this guy needs to be in an asylum because if they don't have Kojima, then like they don't have crazy.
Right.
So yeah, I don't really have too big of an opinion on it. I think that if they did remaster the game, I wouldn't play it, but that would be kind of cool to see, like to have, the older generation and the younger generation be able to experience something that was, older. And if they just decided to make a brand new game, that would be good too. I don't really have too big of an opinion on it because I'm not really a fan. I've never really played any of the games, but yeah.
Okay, no, that's perfectly fine. Listen, I definitely appreciate the honesty. If obviously, if you have no connection to the franchise, you're not going to wing it. So that's good on you for that, dude. Luke Steele, close this particular topic out for us. What do you think, and what are your thoughts on possibly, getting a Metal Gear Solid 6, more specifically, them going back to the well and actually revisiting the original Metal Gear Solid and making it, from the ground up?
I mean, I'm Metal Gear Solid's probably like right near the top of my favorite franchises ever. I absolutely love that franchise, and the first game, especially, is kind of the that like hardcore game that you play that really gets you into being like a gamer that play that wants to play games all the time. I had no idea what was going on. But it was, it blew me away. And even last generation, one of my fondest memories was playing Metal Gear Solid 4, which was actually considered one of the weaker entries, but I absolutely
loved it on the PlayStation 3. My God, it was so good.
Yeah, I absolutely loved it, and I remember in particular being blown away. I can't remember the context, but it's the level where you're on the back of a motorcycle and you're going through like a European city, and everything's coming at you. It's a big set piece, basically, but it was just amazing. It was absolutely amazing. And in terms of a sequel, I have like zero interest in one, because if Kojima's not going to be involved, then
You don't want no part of it. Yeah.
I just don't care. Not that a good Metal Gear couldn't be made without Kojima, because I think you can go to the well of kind of his madness, as it were, and like make something good out of it. But Konami, I just don't think they're interested in putting that much money into a big budget Metal Gear Solid game anymore. They're obsessed with their pachinko machines. They like to make money that way. And then I think, as Noof said, their biggest thing at the moment is PES, is Pro Evolution Soccer, basically. I would be super interested in a remake of the first one, particularly, as you say, if you had a point, do it, because they are a really talented developer. And also, Blue Point actually said, I think last year, they were talking about their next project, obviously not saying what that is, but they were saying that they consider what they're doing in the next project a re-envisaging, as compared to Shadow of the Colossus, which they call like a remake from the ground up. And that makes me kind of lean toward perhaps, they might be doing something like this, because re-envisaging to me would be very much something like Capcom did with Resident Evil 2, where you have this game that plays completely differently, but it's also extremely faithful to the original. Resident Evil 2 is my favorite game of the year as well, by the way. It's fantastic. So I think if they were to do it, that would be amazing. They've also been rumored to perhaps be making a Demon Souls remake for Sony, but we'll have to see. But I'd love a remake, but I just a sequel without Kojima. I just can't imagine it. I just can't. Well, I mean, I can't imagine a Gear Solid game without Kojima, because Metal Gear Survive was a thing, and it was just garbage. Like it wasn't good at all. So,
it was awful. It was awful.
Yeah, it was just it was kind of typical Konami.
Exactly. Yes.
Taking how do we make as much money out of this title as we can? Unlike what just looking at what's popular right now, or kind of survival, fort building games, this sort of thing. Let's kind of strip it of everything that makes a Metal Gear game a Metal Gear game, which is really the kind of crazy story, crazy set pieces, and let's make this kind of garbage. So yeah, I just don't want it from them. But a remake, I'd love.
Nice, absolutely. I think everybody would be, especially if you have an affection for the original. If you played the original, you would love to see. I mean, obviously, you look back to '98 and you see Resident Evil 2, and then you look back to 2019, you see Resident Evil 2, and you're like, yeah, if I'm a Snake fan, if I'm a Solid Snake fan, I would like that treatment for that game, that franchise. Let's hope that they do it. Again, there's no confirmation. This is just a topic I kind of wanted to, start, make from the ground up, make it fun for the show. But I have a big topic to close out today's show. Mortal Kombat 11. Now, listen, there is no doubt that this is not only one of the best fighting franchises in the world, it is, of course, one of the greatest franchises when you talk about guest characters. Now, the guest characters have all just been announced for the first Kombat pack. And, I have the complete list in front of me, and I'm going to read out the list, but, I have a special guest that is going to be making an appearance right after I read it out, and I want to get his personal opinion on it because he's heavily involved in this. And here's the list. Now, Shang Tsung obviously isn't available already. Nightwolf is also available, and there has been talk. There has been some talk here, and it's been public, and I don't know if it's going to happen or not, but Thunder from Killer Instinct may in fact be a skin for Nightwolf on the Xbox side. I've seen some talk between Ed Boon and some people in Microsoft. I hope that comes true, because that would be amazing. Then you have the Terminator T-800 coming out on October 8th. You have Sindel coming on November 26th. Then we start moving into the next year, which is unbelievable. It's that far away. Joker from, of course, DC Universe is January 28th. And closing out the first Kombat pack is Spawn from Todd McFarlane and Image Comics on March 17th. And there's an image floating around of a silhouette that has been basically confirmed, even though he said no and now he said yes. Ash Williams from The Evil Dead will probably be the first character announced for Kombat Pack number 2. But in order to get us off the ground and kind of close out this show on a high note, I was able to acquire a few minutes of Arnold Schwarzenegger to come in and talk about his time filming the character model for his character, the Terminator T-100. Arnold, are you there, sir?
Good morning and welcome, everybody. Thank you so much, BoomStick, for having me here on your fantastic podcast. Coming to you live from. I just wanted to tell you all that you definitely have to get out there and you have to support this game, and most importantly, you have to buy my character, because I am going to lay the smack down on all of the characters in this Mortal Kombat franchise. Sub-Zero, I'm coming for you. Scorpion, I'm going to pull that stupid thing right out of your hands and I'm going to choke you with it. And then there's even going to be a special cheat code in the game where basically if you put this code in, I'm going to appear nude like I do in the intro of all my movies when I come down and I'm coming out of the teleportation, and I'm going to be there, and I'm going to only fight female characters in this mode, and I'm going to kick their asses too, and they're going to enjoy it. So I want you to get out there and support this game. It's going to be amazing. And don't forget Sarah Connor. She's going to be over in the Gears 5 franchise. So we're everywhere right now. We are coming to you, and we are going to be bigger and better. It's going to be awesome. You don't want to miss out. The Terminator is in the building. We're going to kick some ass. Let's go. But don't forget, no matter how hard you try, you cannot get to the chopper.
Well, listen, Arnold, thank you so much. We'll talk about the check I'll be sending you in the mail very shortly. As soon as I'm done with the show, I'll start writing. Hopefully it gets to you wherever you are. Thank you for being here. And Noof Nukem, I want to get your opinion on this, because obviously, Mortal Kombat, because you're an older gamer like myself, we have a real connection to this franchise. And if there's one thing that can be said about Mortal Kombat, is that they change with the times. Ed Boon understands his fan base. He understands what they want. Guest characters have been for quite many years, many incarnations of the franchise have been a big part of it. I mean, for crying out loud, Mortal Kombat X, we saw the Alien and the Predator fight off Jason Voorhees. You know what I'm saying? So it's pretty amazing. These characters seem really over the top. I cannot wait to play all of them. What are your opinions on how Ed Boon handles this franchise, especially with the guest characters?
Well, you can tell that after all these years, Ed Boon and his crew over at NetherRealm, they're very passionate about the franchise. I mean, it's their claim to fame. And no franchise, or at least arguably no franchise, has gone through as many changes and reinterventions of itself as perhaps Mortal Kombat is. It's hard to believe that we're already in, past 10 games in this franchise already, and it's appeared on numerous platforms. It's gone through a lot of graphical upgrades, but at the same time, it remains a spiritual successor to each one. They've kind of kept the formula the same: fast-paced action, over-the-top graphics and gore, and the fatalities and stuff, and it's struck an edge. It's a very edgy fighter compared to a lot of its brethren out there who are a little bit more sort of the PG side of things, and it signified that era back in the day where Street Fighter came out and appealed to a lot of people. Mortal Kombat came out and said, we're for the older crowd. We're going to do this. We're going to add the blood. We're going to add the gore. We are going to add Goro, and we're just going to just knock it out of the park. I love these new character introductions. I love how they're pulling characters over from a variety of other mediums, again, like Terminator and like Spawn, and I do believe Spawn's been in the franchise before, or maybe not. I know he was.
No, he was actually in Soul Calibur. Yes,
right.
Yes.
Soul Calibur. But it's good to see Spawn come back. That's a character that obviously needs to come to the forefront too in video gaming. It's been left in dormant for too long. But yeah, I love it, man. I love the new additions. You got Nightwolf back. Like you said, there's a variety of other ones. I think it's fantastic. Can't wait to see how the Terminator turns out in this game. Obviously, it's going to be one of my personal favorites, and one I will certainly be downloading for it. So yeah, I don't have much more to say other than, like I said, I love the work that they're doing. I love how they keep pushing this franchise forward, even though fighting fighters, no matter how hard they try. I think they're a little bit of a dying breed. I don't think they're quite near the popularity they once had, and probably never will be. But people still love them. Some people play them religiously. But good on them. It's a great lineup, and that's how you keep the game going, is you keep content coming.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Last I heard, this Mortal Kombat game here, Mortal Kombat 11, is the biggest selling game of 2019 still.
Yes, it certainly is, and it's the biggest Mortal Kombat selling game to date.
Yeah. But like just the biggest all-round video game selling in 2019 is Mortal Kombat 11, outselling everything else. So they're not as dying as you might think.
Yeah, I agree. Well, you know what? Being that you jumped in, Shady, I'm going to go to you next on this. You know, these guest characters range in like genre. I mean, we're talking comic book characters, we're talking movie characters, we're talking classic combat, Mortal Kombat characters. This is a great start. We know that they usually have multiple, combat packs. And they're sold, individually. You could buy the pack for whatever it is, and you're good to go unless you buy the collector's edition like I did, and you get it in there. But in your opinion, are you happy to see them really, the range in character selection is all over the board? I actually really like that. I look forward to hearing about the next one because obviously, like for instance, Ash Williams, one of my favorite hero characters in movie, in film, simply because I'm a huge Evil Dead fan. I mean, that's where MrBooMStickXL comes from, because of Ash Williams and what he did in the Evil Dead. What are your takes on the first combat pack?
I think it's pretty awesome, actually. When it comes to these like outside of the Mortal Kombat canon characters, pretty awesome. And kind of weird at the same time, you know what I mean? Where it's sort of like, I guess, with Soul Calibur example, Darth Vader's in here, and we got Yoda on the Xbox. I'm like, it was awesome because I was a huge Star Wars fan, but at the same time, I'm kind of like, hey, I have a lightsaber, you have a sword. How come I doesn't just go right through the sword and just slash this dude in half? I'm kind of like that. Like, I like them, and I don't at the same time. I'm glad that they're there. They're fun. Like they are at the end of the day fun. It's just a fighting game. I don't really give that much of a damn about the lore getting stomped on a little bit for fun's sake. And I think it's cool. A lot of times I find the characters tend to be about to come out. Like it's relevant in that aspect. Like we got Terminator both in Gears of War and in Mortal Kombat. And go figure, there's a brand new Terminator movie launching on November 1st. Like, right. Okay, so that's awesome. I love Terminator. I love Schwarzenegger, man. The guy had like a huge amount to do with my upbringing, more than I guarantee you he's ever even heard of me. So I love the dude. I loved his movies, man. You just got to be ripped and kick ass, and then it's great for Shady. But I think this is cool. I like the characters that they have. Joker is interesting, I think, because we're going to see full-on fatalities with this character now.
Yeah, his sadistic side is really going to come out, for sure.
He's going to have his own fatalities, which is awesome. But then, because Mortal Kombat has so many other characters, you get to see all those fatalities put onto the Joker, which is like, seeing a fatality done on Sub-Zero is kind of different than seeing it maybe done on Goro because of the forearms that are dangling or whatever. Like, I enjoy the animation involved in these fatalities and stuff, so I look forward to seeing Joker both gutting guys and getting gutted by everybody. But I have a theory, actually, that because Terminator is in there and the movie's coming out, we have a Joker movie actually coming out, but that's in October, so the release date of January doesn't quite line up. But we have heard that they're doing a Spawn movie.
Yes.
And this is coming in March. So I'm wondering how much longer after this reveal or, the release in the game of the character, we're either going to get the new trailer and information about this new movie, if not even the movie itself comes out maybe a month or 2 or 3 after that. Because to bring Spawn back, I love the character. He's one of the few characters in comics that I actually have some of his comics in my smaller collection. I loved the artwork. I loved the violence. I loved the HBO cartoon. I love Spawn. He's rad. So I hope that the movie that they do bring is hardcore and does the character justice. But to see him in Mortal Kombat again, he just fits. It's such a violent comes from. So I think it's just going to be awesome to see him in Mortal Kombat, and I hope he brings the Violator with him to just shred dudes up.
Oh, that would be great, man. That would be really something else. Absolutely.
It's sweet, but like for the legacy character, Shang Tsung, that is rad. I love that character. He can, shapeshift into anybody. So that's really cool. And they got the likeness from the actor that played Shang Tsung from Mortal Kombat, the movie. It's like he voice acts him and everything. I love it. Like, he's also in The Man in High Castle, and all I see is Shang Tsung in every scene the guy's in. I'm like, yeah, your soul is mine. I love the guy. So to have him in his likeness, I thought was just a home run, man. The original boss from the first game with the original likeness from the first movie, which is arguably the most fondly remembered video game movie in like the history of maybe 80s, 90s kids. The movie's not so good, but it's fondly remembered.
It's a fun movie. It's a fun film. Yeah, it's definitely fun.
That's right. And then, Nightwolf is cool. Sindel, I think she's really cool. She was the wife of Shao Kahn, I believe, if my Mortal Kombat lore is up to date.
Yes.
So it's kind of neat to see another big character come in. I look forward to all of her intros with all the other characters just to see what the banter is back and forth.
Now, it's definitely going to be interesting. And, of course, Zemi Games, I want to get your opinion on this, dude, because I don't know if you're a big fan of fighting games, but the fact that this game is cared for and loved and respected by, of course, NetherRealm Studios, but more importantly, Ed Boon. Like this is a when he puts out a Mortal Kombat, it is a love letter to fans. He doesn't make mistakes. They don't make mistakes in development. They listen to the fan base, and obviously these are some popular characters that I'm sure shocked a lot of people, but I'm sure even more shocking reveals for the Kombat Pack 2 that has not been announced, but is probably going to be announced at some point or another. What are your takes on how they care for the actual game and they look forward to exciting the fan base?
Well, I mean, I think it's fantastic. And I mean, the game is obviously hugely successful by how many copies they've sold. And, I've talked to a lot of people who have played the game and they absolutely thoroughly enjoy it. I've watched a few people live stream it on Mixer and the game looks really, really good. I haven't bought it yet, but the first chance that I think of it and I see it on sale, I'll probably buy it.
I got a feeling it's coming to Game Pass, dude. I mean, I really do.
I hope it does. I mean, Mortal Kombat 10 did eventually,
yes,
but I don't know how long it's going to take until it comes to Game Pass, but hopefully it does sometime. Now, I will say that I am definitely not a huge Mortal Kombat fan, but I am a very, very big Terminator fan. So, I mean, that kind of makes me want to, just go out and grab it for that, but I don't quite think that's worth $60 for me to go buy the game yet. But one thing I do like is how they're spacing out the characters, every couple of months.
Right.
That way, like they're building up hype, and they're also not releasing all the characters, and then 6 months go by, and then people stop playing the game, or they just they lose their attention. I do like how they're spacing out the characters. And is this only like the first character pack?
Yes,
like,
this is the first one. Yep.
There will be like a couple more probably.
More than likely, there'll be at least 3, a total of 3.
Okay, so I mean, it's definitely exciting to see what new characters they bring. I mean, because at least the first character pack seems to be very, very nice.
Yeah,
I think they said there's 19 skins in this first pack as well for these 6 characters. So you're looking at 3 skins per guy. So I want to see is Arnold going to be just the T100 exoskeleton? Is that possible?
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Which versions of Joker might they be able to put in? Like, can they do the full-blown one right out of maybe Injustice, because it's the same company making the game?
Yeah, maybe.
Or will they do the one from the movie, or an old school one from the original Batman TV show for kicks? Like, I think the skins are awesome, and I look forward to seeing those too.
Yeah, me too. And you know what? Before we get to Luke Steele to close out today's show, as well as the last topic, I have to thank Rain G4 for the $2 super chat, which is very generous of you. Thank you. He says he wants to see Rambo in Mortal Kombat 11. You know what, dude? Let me tell you something. That's a great pick. A couple of reasons. One, he's pretty badass with a knife and a bow. Secondly, if you haven't seen it, go to YouTube and look at the Last Blood trailer. My God, it looks so good. I'm very excited for that. But Luke Steele, I want to get your opinion on this, because obviously We talked about how the care and precision for the franchise as a whole is always done with class when you talk about Ed Boon. And he does care about the fans. He does want to give the fans everything that they want. And it looks like they really kind of knocked it out of the park, in my opinion, when you talk about the first character combat pack, as they call it. Are you excited to see not only these characters, but where they're going to go in the future?
Yeah, definitely. I still haven't picked the game up actually, because there's just so much out. But I really love Mortal Kombat, and I think I'm going to hold off slightly until these characters start coming out, because that first pack is phenomenal. Like it's so like varied, and there's interesting characters. I'm super hyped for kind of another Spawn appearance in a game. I really hope something actually happens with Spawn separately, and we get a Spawn game at some point, because it'd just be fantastic. I think the thing you always get from Mortal Kombat is real fan service. So Ed Boon in particular is always interacting with fans, always listening to their ideas, and they really go out and make it happen with these kind of licensing deals with various characters, etc. So I'm really happy with what they're doing with it, and I think, as other people have said, looking forward to seeing the fatality on some of these other characters, particularly the Joker, who's kind of unleashed now from the kind of non-violent ways of injustice. So I'm super excited.
Yeah, no, me too. Absolutely, I'm right there with you. I would love to see where they take this, but it's going to be interesting nonetheless. I will say this. This has been an amazing show, and I cannot thank the nearly 130 people that tuned in very early, because this is a breakfast show, and it is 10 a.m., and it may, when the show starts, at 7 a.m. if you're on the West Coast, and even earlier or later, depending on where you listen to the show around the world. I want to thank everyone in the chat for once again being amazing chat members, because you treat each other with respect. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of banter back and forth. I truly appreciate that you guys do that. For some reason or another, and I'm not going to ask why or how, a lot of the trolls stay away from this show, maybe because it's too much fun. I don't know, but I'm glad that they do. Of course, I have to thank the channel members once again for joining the channel membership. That is very kind of you to do. It is greatly appreciated. And of course, the super chats that came in today. Thank you so much. And of course, I couldn't do these shows without putting an outstanding and unbelievable bunch of guys together to talk about gaming, and I did just that. And of course, let me get to the outros. Noof Nukem, listen, dude, it's always a pleasure to work with you. We always have fun. The banter is always very addictive back and forth, of course, because we're old school gamers. But of course, you have your own YouTube channel, and you have a very big presence on Twitter and other forms of social media. So I'd like you to tell everyone where they can follow you on Twitter, but more importantly, check out your outstanding coverage that you do for your show on YouTube.
Well, everybody knows Noof Nukem puts the dick in addictive. Yes, it's been another great show.
I love it.
Sorry, I had to get at least one no chills moment in here. Always a pleasure to be here, Boom. Like I said, I catch this show when I can. Normally I'm at work, but sometimes I get the later shift in the day, so I'm heading off here shortly. But always a blast, great panel. Every week you have usually every time I'm on, you always have some new people and some great familiar faces as well. So Shady, welcome back, brother. Like I said, and there's always great topics on this show as well, and articulated quite well. So chat's fantastic. People dropping some super chats there, great stuff. You guys know where to find me, man. Always in the gutter. Xbox Live, PlayStation, and Nintendo. Wherever there's great games, you will find the Noofster. So that's it for me, man. It's peace out. And this guy just wanted to say, it's been another great show, Boom. I wanted to thank you for having me here. It's been a short time, but I will be back, and I can't wait to play some Mortal Kombat and get out there, and I will narrate my fights for you, and I will beat you all up. I'll take you on. Let's do it.
Well, thanks again for being here, Noof. And of course, our very special guest in Arnold Schwarzenegger. Thank you for being here. And of course, so Shady. First of all, the show is not the show when So Shady is not on the show. So it's great to finally have you back in your permanent panel seat here on Breakfast with Boom. Please tell everyone where they can follow you, argue with you possibly on Twitter, but more importantly, listen to you when you talk about your favorite sport, which is, of course, gaming.
Not a problem, Boom. I don't know about this arguing stuff. Debating, let's call it. How about that?
Okay, let's say debating.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. No, it was so good to be back, man. Like I said, it was damn near over a month, I think, since the last podcast I've done. Things got a little bit busy and hectic in my life. Had to take care of some stuff. Just decided to take a little bit of time off as well. But it is awesome to be back. I just didn't realize how much I missed it, man. Like I'm active on Twitter and have been this whole time, but to actually come on the shows like this and get to talk with some just awesome, passionate gamers, hear different points of view, read the chat, both the people that agree and not. Like, I love it all. It's great. There are some stresses that come with it, but overall, it is just such a good time, and I look forward to it each week. And I'm just glad to be back, man. So thank you so much for having me. I look forward to our new show coming very soon on Monday nights. Going to be some exciting stuff there. I am on Twitter at the Sesh Empire. That is one word. Give me a follow if you haven't already. Become an agent, if you will. Don't just lounge around like some casual peasant of the empire. You gotta get recognized. You know what I'm saying? Hit that follow button. I love to interact. You know, the more you interact with me, the more I'll interact with you. I appreciate everyone that comes out and spends their free time listening to us talk about games, man. Thank you so much, everybody. Enjoy your weekend. Happy gaming. I will talk to you again soon.
Nice. Thank you again for being here. And once again, it's great to have you back. And Zemi Games, the other permanent panel member on the Breakfast with Boom family. It is great to have you here. Love the quips that we have with one another, especially when we talk about scary games. And of course, your possible game of the year, The Blair Witch, will be out on the 30th. I expect a full review, you playing in the dark, possibly wearing headphones and videotaping it, streaming it for everyone to see. Welcome, of course, back to the show. It's great to have you every week. Please tell everyone where they can follow you on Twitter, because this guy needs some Twitter follows. Folks, please go out there and follow him on Twitter, because he is definitely BoomStick approved. And tell everyone where they can subscribe, not to one, but to both of your YouTube channels.
Thank you so much, Boom. I don't know about the Blair Witch. You keep bringing it up. I don't know about that game, man. I mean, I don't want to die of a heart attack. Okay, so I don't think that's ever gonna happen. But thanks anyway. But yeah, if you guys want to, you can follow me on YouTube at Zimmy Games. You can also follow me on Twitter using the same name, Zimmy Games. And you can also check out my second YouTube channel called The Strange if you want. And thank you so much, Boom, for setting up this fantastic show and all these great topics.
I definitely appreciate it. And it's always great to hang out with you, dude. Definitely, for sure. And of course, last and in no way least, my very good friend who has been on Breakfast Room, I believe this might be his third appearance, Luke Steele, who is someone I enjoy talking with, especially when we get into the part of the show where we need some sort of a lawyer opinion, where from a legal point of view, he gives us the inside where not everyone will understand or even know, and I like that. Luke, thank you so much for being here, dude. I want to say that you are definitely going to be invited back whenever you have a free Friday. Please tell everyone where they can follow you on Twitter. But more importantly, if you have any other your gamer tag or your follow you on Nintendo on the Nintendo Switch that you just bought, let us know, brother.
Oh, thanks, Boom. It's always great being on here. One chance, and so great having such a great panel to speak with games about. And it's just nice to actually be on, be able to speak with people who are kind of, positive and, critical as well, but only when they need to be. So I always love coming on here. Please do follow me on Twitter. It's at LukeSteele90. I don't actually know my Switch setup yet. Like, I don't know what code is or anything like that.
Yeah, you know what? If you can, you just DM it to me privately, and I'll just add it into the show notes.
I'm on Xbox Live, and that's Corex space XE, so COREX space XE. I'm on there fairly often at the moment, actually. But yeah, what a great show and great panel, and always happy to be here.
Well, yes, it's great to work with you again, dude. And I'm going to thank everybody once again. I want to wish everybody a great weekend. We started the show off with some amazing MCU/Disney/Sony news. Again, I mean, I'll know it's confirmed when we hear it from Sony or from Marvel, but the source that reported it does have a really, really good track record, and it's starting to show up on other YouTubers' streams as well. So there might be, there's a good chance that this, in fact, deal did get done, which is great about that. And of course, I like to close out the show with two very simple things, folks. It's something that my pop taught me when I was real small. It took me really, it did well for me, not only in life, but in my police career. Treat others how you want to be treated. That's something that's very small, but it has big ramifications in life. And also, it doesn't cost anything to be nice. And I want to close out with, once again, a big thank you to everyone that took the time to listen. Have a great weekend. And just a small announcement, there will not be a Breakfast with Boom next week. Mrs. Boomstick finally is getting a full week vacation. And of course, I am going to be doing one show, but I'm not going to be doing three, simply because we're going to be going out and doing some things. And not to mention, I want to give Mrs. Boomstick the proper attention, because she's obviously my biggest...
baby, there it is.
Yeah,
sorry, Boom.
She's my biggest. Yeah, she's my biggest supporter, and I have to make sure that we go out to the movies, we go out to dinner, we go out shopping, we do other things, and I want to make sure that she knows that she is number one. So that's why we will not have an episode of Breakfast with Boom, but we will be returning the following Friday. Once again, enjoy your weekend, be safe, and of course, be nice. Take care, everybody.